Tonight, we will explore the seeds of suffering that we plant with our own hands and how wisdom shows us a different way to tend the garden of our lives. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to fix, no one you need to become. Simply let these stories wash over you like gentle rain on dry earth. If this path calls to you, I invite you to subscribe and join us regularly as we explore the Buddha's teachings through the ancient art of storytelling. We will walk tonight through 10 villages where people discovered that what we give to the world returns to us multiplied. We will see how our actions create the very conditions we must live within, like seeds that grow into the trees whose shade we must sit under. Let us begin this journey together. Feel your breath moving naturally in and out. Notice how your body is supported, held safely as you rest. There is nowhere else you need to be. Let us explore a story about Rina, a potter whose hands could shape clay into vessels of light, but whose heart had forgotten how to share that light with others. In a village nestled between rolling hills and wheat fields, there lived a woman named Rina, who worked clay as if it were music made solid. Her workshop stood at the edge of the market square, its windows golden with afternoon light, its shelves lined with vessels of every size and shape. But Rina was known throughout the village not for cups or bowls, but for her oil lamps. Her clay lamps were works of art. Each one emerged from her wheel perfectly balanced, its walls thin enough to glow warmly when lit, its spout shaped to draw oil smoothly upward to feed the flame. When Rina worked, neighbors would pause outside her open door just to watch her hands guide the spinning clay, to see beauty take form from earth and water. The lamps she made fell into two categories, though none but Rina knew this. Some emerged from her wheel with walls that caught the light just so, with spouts that curved in perfect proportion, with bases that sat steady and sure. These lamps, when lit, would burn for hours with a flame that never flickered, never smoked, never failed. The oil would draw evenly, the wick would burn clean, and the warm light would fill a room like captured sunlight. But pottery, like all crafts, produces pieces that are less than perfect. Some lamps emerged with walls slightly uneven, with small bubbles that had not been smoothed away, with spouts that drew oil unevenly, or bases that sat at the slightest angle. These imperfections were invisible to untrained eyes, but Rina knew them all. For years, Rina had followed the same practice. The perfect lamps, the ones that would burn steadily through the longest nights, she kept for herself. Her own home glowed each evening with reliable light that never failed her. The flawed lamps, the ones with hidden weaknesses that would cause flames to sputter and die at the most inconvenient moments. These she arranged beautifully on her shelves and sold to her neighbors. "Look at this fine workmanship," customers would say, running their fingers over the smooth clay surfaces. "Rina's lamps are the most beautiful in 3 villages." And they were beautiful. Even the flawed ones carried Rina's skill, her sense of proportion, her understanding of form. But beauty and function, as Rina well knew, were not always the same thing. When Deepak the merchant needed lamps for his evening accounting, he bought 4 of Rina's finest-looking pieces. When old Kamala wanted a reliable lamp to burn through the night while she tended her sick grandson, she selected what appeared to be Rina's best work. When the temple committee needed lamps for the evening prayers, they came to Rina, trusting her reputation. But as days turned to weeks, complaints began to drift back to Rina's workshop like smoke on the wind. "My lamp keeps going out just when I need it most," Deepak mentioned to another merchant, unaware that Rina was arranging pots nearby. "3 times last night, Kamala's lamp failed," whispered one neighbor to another as they passed Rina's door. poor woman had to fumble in darkness while the child burned with fever. The temple lamp sputtered during evening prayers, the priest confided to a friend. Most embarrassing, right during the devotional songs. But these whispers remained whispers, and Rena's customers, being polite people, continued to smile and purchase her beautiful but unreliable wares. After all, clay lamps sometimes failed. That was simply the nature of pottery, they assumed, and Rena's lamps were so lovely to look at. Meanwhile, Rena's own home glowed each night with steady, dependable light. Her lamps never failed her when she needed to work late, never left her fumbling in darkness, never sputtered during important moments. She had kept the best for herself, and the best served her well. This arrangement had continued for 3 years when the dry season arrived with unusual intensity. The sun beat down on the village with relentless heat, day after day, without relief. Wells dropped lower than anyone could remember. The river that usually sang past the village slowed to a whisper. Gardens withered despite careful watering, and everyone spoke of the need for rain. It was during this brittle, anxious time that Rena made a small mistake. She had been working late in her shop, crafting a particularly challenging set of lamps with decorative handles that required delicate attention. One of her perfect lamps sat beside her workbench, its flame steady and bright, casting golden light across her work. As she reached for a tool, her sleeve brushed against the lamp. It tilted, wavered, and fell toward a pile of clay shavings that had dried to tinder in the unusual heat. Rena lunged to catch the lamp, but her hand struck a jar of oil instead. The oil splashed across the clay shavings just as the lamp's flame touched the pile. In an instant, fire bloomed like a deadly flower. She reached for water, but her water jar held only a shallow pool. She threw it on the flames, but the fire had already leaped to the wooden shelves where her finished pieces waited for sale. The dry wood caught instantly, hungrily. Rena ran from the workshop calling for help, but the flames raced faster than her feet. By the time she reached the village square, fire was already licking at the roof of her home. "Fire!" she cried. "Help me! Please! My house is burning!" From all corners of the village, people emerged from their homes. They could see the orange glow against the dark sky, could smell the smoke carried on the still air. This was every villager's nightmare during dry season. Fire that could leap from house to house, consuming everything in its path. But as neighbors gathered in the square, something strange happened. Instead of running toward Rena's house with buckets and wet cloths, they stood in clusters, talking quietly among themselves. Deepak the merchant stood with his arms crossed. "3 times this week my lamp went out while I was counting money," he said to the group around him. "Nearly made a serious error because of those faulty wicks." Old Kamala leaned heavily on her walking stick. "My grandson was sick for 5 nights," she said slowly. 5 nights I needed reliable light to tend him. 5 nights Rena's lamp failed me when I needed it most. I nearly gave him the wrong medicine twice, fumbling in darkness. The temple priest nodded gravely. "Our evening prayers have been disrupted so many times by failing lamps. The congregation loses focus when the light keeps dying. It's affected our entire spiritual practice." One by one, neighbors shared their stories. Lamps that died during important meals, leaving guests fumbling with their food. Lamps that failed during births, when midwives needed steady light for delicate work. Lamps that sputtered during the village meetings, making it impossible to read documents or see faces clearly. Meanwhile, the fire grew brighter, spreading from Rena's workshop to her house, beginning to threaten the neighboring buildings. But still, no one moved to help. Rena ran from group to group, her face streaked with tears and soot. "Please," she begged, "help me save my home. The fire will spread if we don't act quickly." But Deepak shook his head. "Why should we risk ourselves for someone who sells us darkness?" he asked. "When you needed light, your lamps worked perfectly. When we needed light, yours failed us again and again." "I have children to think of," said another neighbor. "What if I'm injured fighting your fire? Who will tend to my family when my own lamps fail in the night?" "The tools we have for fighting fire," added old Kamala slowly, "depend on good light to use safely. How can we trust equipment to work in an emergency when the lamps you sold us can't even work on ordinary nights?" Rena felt the words like physical blows. She looked around the circle of faces, faces lit by the growing fire that was consuming her life's work, and saw in their expressions something she had never noticed before. Not anger, but a deep weariness, not cruelty, but a kind of resigned disappointment. "I always did my best work," she whispered. "Yes," said the temple priest gently. "You did your best work, but you kept it for yourself and gave us what you knew was flawed. You taught us that we could not depend on you when we needed light most. How can we depend on you now when you need our help most?" Let us pause here for a moment. Notice your breathing, how it continues steadily without your effort. Feel your body supported by whatever holds you now. There is nothing urgent, nothing that requires your immediate attention. Simply rest in this moment of stillness. The fire continued to spread, but slowly, as if even the flames understood that something important was being revealed in the village square. Rena stood among her neighbors, surrounded by people she had known for years, yet feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her workshop. "I don't understand," she said, though even as the words left her mouth, she felt a cold recognition creeping up from her stomach. "I gave you beautiful lamps. I worked hard on each one. You gave us beautiful lamps that didn't work when we needed them," Deepak said simply. "Beauty without function is just decoration. We needed tools, and you sold us decoration disguised as tools." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. People began sharing more details of their experiences, and Rena heard her reputation crumbling like clay that had been fired too quickly. "The lamp I bought for my daughter's wedding celebration," one woman said. "It went out 3 times during the ceremony. The guests started laughing, thinking it was some kind of joke. It should have been the most dignified night of her life." "My new baby's naming ceremony," added a young father. "The elders couldn't see the sacred texts clearly because the lamp kept dimming. We had to postpone the entire ritual." "I bought 6 lamps for the harvest festival," called out the village coordinator. "Only 2 lasted through the evening. Children were stumbling around in the dark. Someone could have been hurt." Each story landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples of realization through Rena's consciousness. She began to see her sales not as simple transactions, but as moments when people had trusted her with their important occasions, their necessary functions, their basic need for reliable light, and she had failed them all, while telling herself she was simply keeping the best work for herself. As she stood there in the growing heat of the fire, Rena remembered something she had forgotten over the years. She remembered why people bought oil lamps. Not for beauty, though beauty was welcome. Not for decoration, though decoration had its place. People bought lamps because they needed light they could depend on. They needed to read after sunset, to work on important tasks, to tend to sick family members, to create welcoming spaces for guests, to participate in religious ceremonies, to guide their steps safely through dark rooms. Every lamp she had sold with hidden flaws had been a small betrayal of that trust. Every customer who had brought gold or silver to exchange for her work had been given something that would fail them when they needed it most. The fire had now consumed both her workshop and house, and was beginning to threaten the building where Gopal the baker worked. But instead of organizing a bucket brigade, the villagers began evacuating the neighboring buildings, preparing to contain the fire rather than fight it. "Let it burn," said someone in the crowd. "Better to lose 2 buildings than to risk lives with unreliable equipment." This was when Rena truly understood what she had done. By giving her neighbors tools that couldn't be trusted, she had taught them not to trust in community cooperation. If people couldn't rely on something as simple as a lamp to work when needed, how could they rely on each other in emergencies? Her neighbors weren't refusing to help out of spite or cruelty. They were refusing to help because she had trained them, through years of small failures, to expect that things wouldn't work when they were needed most. Why should emergency cooperation work when nothing else she provided had worked reliably? A figure approached from the road leading out of the village. Even in the firelight, Rena recognized the simple robes and calm gait of the traveling monk who passed through their area several times a year, often stopping to rest in the temple or to share teachings with whoever was interested. The monk surveyed the scene calmly, the fire consuming 2 buildings, the villagers standing in organized groups rather than fighting the flames, and Rena standing alone, her face streaked with tears and soot. "What has happened here?" he asked gently. Several villagers began to explain at once, but the monk raised a hand and looked directly at Rena. "Perhaps you could tell me what you have learned tonight." Rena's voice came out as barely a whisper. "I kept the good lamps for myself and sold the bad ones to my neighbors. Now my house is burning, and no one will help because they cannot trust me." The monk nodded slowly. "And what else?" Rena looked around at the faces surrounding her, faces of people who had supported her work for years, who had brought their money and their trust to her workshop, who had praised her skill and recommended her to their friends. "I gave them darkness and expected them to give me light," she said slowly. "I broke their trust in small ways, day after day. And now, when I need their trust most, there is none left." The monk was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, the only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the distant splash of water as neighbors worked to protect the buildings that could still be saved. "There is another teaching here," the monk said finally. "Can you see it?" Rena wiped soot from her eyes and looked again at her neighbors. She saw Deepak, whose careful accounting had been disrupted repeatedly by her failing lamps. She saw old Kamala, who had needed reliable light to care for her sick grandson. She saw the temple priest, whose sacred ceremonies had been interrupted by sputtering wicks. "They trusted me with their important moments," she said slowly. "Their celebrations, their emergencies, their daily work, their spiritual practice. And I gave them tools that failed them when failure mattered most." "Yes," said the monk. "And what does this teach us about trust?" Rena felt something shift in her chest, like clay finding its true center on the potter's wheel. Trust is built in small moments. Every lamp that works as promised builds trust. Every lamp that fails when needed breaks trust. I thought I was just keeping the best pieces for myself, but I was actually... She paused, searching for the right words. "You were teaching your community not to depend on each other," the monk said gently. "Every time someone's lamp failed during an important moment, you taught them that tools can't be trusted, that promises aren't kept, that quality is not what it appears to be. You taught them to expect disappointment." The fire had begun to die down now, having consumed everything flammable in the two buildings. The villagers had successfully prevented its spread, working together efficiently to protect the rest of their community. But they had done so by accepting the loss of Rena's property, rather than risking themselves to save it. Let us rest here for a moment. Feel your breath moving in and out, steady and reliable like a lamp that never fails. Notice how your body knows how to breathe without your conscious effort. There is wisdom in this simple, dependable rhythm. As dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, the full extent of Rena's loss became clear. Her workshop, with its carefully organized tools and its shelves of finished pottery, was nothing but blackened timbers and broken clay. Her house, where perfect oil lamps had burned reliably every night for 3 years, was a pile of ash and twisted metal. But as neighbors began to drift back to their own homes, Rena noticed something she had never seen before. She noticed how they moved together, how they checked on each other, how they shared resources and coordinated efforts without any formal organization. She saw Deepak offering his cart to help elderly neighbors carry salvaged belongings. She saw old Kamala, despite her age, organizing the younger women to prepare food for everyone who had worked through the night. She saw the temple priest leading a group to inspect other buildings for fire damage. They worked together like parts of a well-made lamp, each component doing its part to create something larger and more useful than any individual piece. And they did all of this while excluding her, not out of malice, but out of a learned caution. They had discovered they could depend on each other, but they had also learned they could not depend on her. The monk sat down on a stone wall and gestured for Rena to join him. The villagers continued their cleanup work around them, efficient and cooperative. "What will you do now?" he asked. Rena looked at the ruins of her workshop. "I suppose I will rebuild, but I don't know if anyone will buy from me again. I don't know if they should buy from me again." "That is honest," said the monk. "And what have you learned about the lamps you made?" "I learned that I was a better potter than I was a person," Rena said slowly. "My hands knew how to make perfect lamps, but my heart didn't know how to share them fairly." "And what does this teach you about perfection?" Rena watched her neighbors working together in the growing daylight. "Perfection kept only for myself is not really perfection. It's selfishness disguised as skill. Real perfection would be making sure that everyone who needs light can depend on it." The monk smiled. "The Buddha taught that our individual well-being and the well-being of our community are not separate things. When we serve others poorly, we create the conditions we ourselves must live in. When we serve others well, we strengthen the web of trust that supports us all." A young woman approached them hesitantly. Rena recognized her as Priya, who had bought several lamps over the years for her growing family. "Rena," Priya said quietly, "I wanted to say something before you decide what to do next." Rena braced herself for another story of lamp failure, but Priya surprised her. "I know your lamps often failed us," Priya said. "But I also remember when my first baby was born, and the birth was difficult, and it lasted all night. The lamp I had bought from you died after only 2 hours, leaving the midwife working in near darkness." She paused. "But I also remember that when word reached you about what was happening, you came yourself. You brought one of your own lamps, one of the good ones that burned steadily all night. You sat with us through the hardest hours, tending the light so the midwife could work safely." Rena felt tears running down her soot-stained cheeks. She had forgotten that night, had forgotten that moment when her neighbor's need had been greater than her own comfort. "That lamp you brought saved my son's life," Priya continued. So when I see you sitting here having lost everything, I want you to know that some of us remember both sides of who you are. The person who sold us flawed goods, and also the person who shared her best work when life and death were at stake. Priya reached into her bag and pulled out a small clay bowl. "I made this for you," she said, setting it down between Rina and the monk. "It's not beautiful like your work. I'm not a potter, but it holds water, and you must be thirsty." Rina lifted the simple bowl and found that it did indeed hold water, clean and cool. As she drank, she tasted not just water, but something else: the possibility of redemption, the chance to rebuild not just her workshop, but her relationships with her neighbors. Other villagers began to approach, not all of them, and not with offers of immediate help, but with acknowledgement that the situation was more complex than it had seemed in the dramatic hours of the fire. "My lamp failed during my father's funeral," said one man. "But I also remember that you donated beautiful urns for his ashes, and you refused payment because you said no one should profit from grief. Your lamps never worked reliably for daily use," added another woman. "But when the bandits came through 2 years ago, you helped make torches that burned all night to keep us safe. You stayed up with the men on watch, making sure the flames never died." As these stories emerged, Rina began to see a pattern she had never noticed before. In emergencies, when the stakes were highest, she had always shared her best work freely. It was only in the ordinary commerce of daily life that she had kept the good lamps for herself and sold the flawed ones to her neighbors. "Why did I do that?" she asked the monk quietly. "Why did I save my generosity only for emergencies?" The monk considered this. Perhaps because emergencies feel important, while daily needs feel ordinary. But the Buddha taught that how we treat ordinary moments reveals our true character. Anyone can be generous in a crisis, when the whole community is watching. The real test is whether we are generous on Tuesday afternoon, when no one is paying attention. This story shows us how our small choices create the world we live in. Rina discovered that keeping the best for herself and giving others inferior work had taught her community not to trust her when she needed their help most. The Buddha taught that we are interconnected. What we give to others creates the conditions we ourselves must live within. When we offer others our best effort, our honest work, our genuine care, we strengthen the web of trust that holds communities together. When we save our best for ourselves while giving others what we know is flawed, we teach people not to depend on us. And this isolation returns to us when we most need support. Let us explore another story, one about a student whose envy created the very failure he feared most. Feel your breathing now, steady and natural. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw release any tension it might be holding. There is nothing urgent here, nothing that requires immediate action. Simply rest in this moment. In a city known for its music, where the sound of instruments drifted from workshops and practice rooms at all hours of the day, there lived a young man named Naveen who had studied the sitar for 7 years under Master Krishnan, one of the most respected musicians in the region. Naveen's dedication to his studies was complete. He rose before dawn to practice scales and exercises. He memorized hundreds of classical compositions, spending long hours perfecting his finger positions and his sense of rhythm. His calloused fingertips and the permanent indentations on his chest from the sitar's weight testified to his commitment. Master Krishnan's school was small, taking only a handful of serious students at a time. The master believed that music required not just technical skill, but spiritual depth, and he preferred to work closely with each student. guiding their individual development rather than teaching large groups. For 7 years, Naveen had been Master Krishnan's most devoted student. Not necessarily the most talented. That distinction had belonged to Arjun, who had completed his training and moved to the royal court 3 years earlier, but certainly the most dedicated, the most consistent, the one who could be counted on to practice diligently and follow instructions precisely. This reputation for dedication was precious to Naveen. In a household where his father sold rice and his mother mended clothing, being known as Master Krishnan's most serious student gave him identity, purpose, a place in the world that felt important. When people heard his name, they said, "Ah, yes, the one who studies so hard with Master Krishnan, the dedicated one." So when Master Krishnan announced that he would be accepting a new student, Naveen felt a flutter of unease but pushed it aside. After 7 years, he was secure in his position. He was the senior student, the one who sometimes helped demonstrate techniques for newer musicians. Surely no new student could threaten his standing. The new student's name was Ravi, and he arrived on a hot afternoon in late spring, carrying a worn sitar case and a letter of recommendation from a teacher in a distant city. He was about Naveen's age, with quick eyes and an easy smile, and he seemed genuinely excited to study with Master Krishnan. "I have heard that your teaching produces musicians who truly understand the soul of the music," Ravi said to the master during his introductory lesson. "I hope to learn not just technique, but wisdom." Master Krishnan nodded approvingly. "Music is a path to understanding the nature of reality," he said. "Those who approach it with humility and openness will find it teaches them about much more than sound." Naveen watched this exchange from his practice corner and felt a twinge of something unpleasant in his chest. The new student was saying exactly the right things, showing exactly the right attitude. But surely, Naveen reasoned, saying the right things and demonstrating them through years of practice were very different matters. For the first few weeks, everything proceeded as Naveen expected. Ravi was given basic exercises to work on, simple compositions to memorize, fundamental techniques to master. Meanwhile, Naveen continued his advanced studies, working on complex ragas that required years of preparation to understand properly. But by the end of the first month, something unexpected began to happen. Ravi's progress was not just steady, but remarkable. Techniques that had taken Naveen months to master, Ravi seemed to absorb in weeks. Compositions that Naveen had struggled with for entire seasons, Ravi played confidently after only a few lessons. "Listen to how cleanly Ravi executes that passage," Master Krishnan commented one afternoon after hearing both students practice the same piece. "Naveen, you have been working on that section for 2 months. See how Ravi approaches the fingering. There is something you might learn from his technique." Naveen felt heat rise in his face. For 7 years, he had been the example for others to follow. Now, suddenly, he was being told to learn from someone who had been studying for less than 2 months. "Master," Naveen said carefully, "perhaps Ravi has studied this piece before, with his previous teacher. That would explain why it comes so easily to him." But when questioned, Ravi shook his head. "I have never encountered this composition before," he said honestly. "But something about the way Master Krishnan explains the emotional content makes the technical aspects feel natural. When I understand what the music is trying to express, my fingers seem to find the right positions, almost by themselves." Master Krishnan looked pleased. "This is the mark of a true musician," he said. "When technique serves expression rather than the other way around, the learning becomes effortless." Over the following weeks, Naveen watched with growing dismay as Ravi continued to excel. Not only did he master new material quickly, but he brought insights to familiar pieces that made them sound fresh and alive. Other students began asking Ravi questions about his approach. Even some of the neighborhood musicians started dropping by to hear the promising new student play. The praise that had once flowed to Naveen now flowed to Ravi. The attention, the recognition, the sense of being special, all of it was shifting away from him like water flowing downhill. Ravi has a natural gift, Naveen overheard Master Krishnan telling another teacher. In 30 years of instruction, I have rarely seen such intuitive musical understanding combined with technical aptitude. He may be ready for advanced training much sooner than usual. That night, Naveen lay awake staring at the ceiling. 7 years of dedicated practice, 7 years of consistent effort, 7 years of building his reputation as the serious student. And now it seemed like it could all be made irrelevant by someone with more natural talent. The feeling in his chest had grown from unease to something darker and more consuming. It was like a hungry animal that fed on his thoughts, growing stronger each day as he compared himself to Ravi, as he cataloged each of Ravi's successes and each of his own perceived failures. "It's not fair," he whispered to the darkness. "I have worked so much harder. I have sacrificed so much more. Why should someone who just arrived receive more recognition than someone who has proven his dedication over years?" Let us pause here and notice the breath moving naturally in and out of your body. Feel how your chest rises and falls without your effort, how your body knows what it needs without your conscious control. Rest in this automatic wisdom, this simple rhythm that requires nothing from you, but allows everything. As the days passed, this feeling of unfairness began to change the way Naveen approached his practice. Where once he had focused on the music itself, on understanding the emotional depths of each raga, on developing sensitivity to the subtle relationships between notes, now he found himself practicing with one eye, always on Ravi. When Ravi struggled with a passage, Naveen felt a secret satisfaction. When Ravi played something beautifully, Naveen immediately tried to play it even more perfectly, with more technical precision, more obvious effort. Music, which had once been a path of discovery for him, became a competition he felt he was losing. "Your playing has become tense," Master Krishnan observed during one of Naveen's lessons. "There is strain in your touch, forcing in your phrasing. Music cannot be grasped like a rope. The harder you pull, the more likely it is to slip through your fingers." "I am practicing more diligently than ever," Naveen replied, which was true. He was spending longer hours with his instrument, working with greater intensity, pushing himself harder than he had in years. "Diligence and forcing are not the same thing," the master said gently. "A farmer cannot make crops grow by pulling on the shoots. Sometimes the most diligent thing to do is to step back and allow natural processes to unfold." But Naveen could not step back. The animal in his chest had grown too strong, too demanding. It required constant feeding with thoughts of comparison, with plans for proving himself, with schemes for demonstrating that dedication and hard work mattered more than natural talent. One morning, Naveen arrived at the school early and overheard Master Krishnan speaking with another teacher who had come to visit. "Young Ravi shows extraordinary promise," Master Krishnan was saying. "I am considering recommending him for the summer music festival in the capital. It would be unusual to send someone with so little formal training, but his musical understanding is already quite mature." Naveen felt the words like physical blows. The summer festival was the most prestigious opportunity a student could receive. Musicians who performed there often gained recognition that shaped their entire careers. Naveen had dreamed of being recommended for the festival, had imagined it as the natural culmination of his years of dedicated study. "What about your other student?" the visiting teacher asked. "The one who has been with you for so long?" "Naveen is technically proficient and wonderfully dedicated," Master Krishnan replied. "But lately, his playing has become mechanical, forced. I worry that he is more concerned with proving himself than with serving the music. The festival requires not just skill, but spiritual maturity, the ability to forget oneself in service of something larger." That afternoon, when Ravi was practicing in the main room under Master Krishnan's guidance, Naveen made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. He had been studying with the master longer than anyone. He knew where the spare instruments were kept, where the sheet music was stored, where the master kept his personal notes about each student's progress. Among these notes, Naveen discovered, was Master Krishnan's preliminary recommendation letter for Ravi's festival application. It praised Ravi's natural musicality, his emotional maturity, his potential to represent the school with distinction. Naveen read the letter twice, feeling the animal in his chest roar with indignation. Then, without allowing himself to think about what he was doing, he folded the letter and slipped it inside his shirt. That night, in his room, he burned the letter and watched Master Krishnan's careful handwriting disappear in flames. "There," he whispered to himself. "Now we will see if natural talent is enough without the support it expects to receive." But destroying the letter was only the beginning. Over the following days, Naveen found other small ways to sabotage Ravi's progress. When Ravi left his music sheets on the practice room table, Naveen would rearrange them so that important pages went missing. When Ravi asked to borrow rosin for his bow, Naveen would give him a block that was too old and hard to work properly. When other students asked Naveen about practice room schedules, he would give Ravi incorrect information, causing him to miss opportunities to work with Master Krishnan. Each act of sabotage was small, easily explained as accident or misunderstanding. But together, they began to create problems for Ravi that seemed to stem from carelessness or bad luck. "I cannot find the second page of the composition we worked on yesterday," Ravi would say during lessons. "You must learn to be more organized with your materials," Master Krishnan would reply with gentle disappointment. "A musician's discipline extends to caring for scores and instruments." "My bow is not responding well today," Ravi would mention during practice. "A good musician adapts to imperfect conditions," another student would observe. "Perhaps you are becoming too dependent on everything being exactly right." Meanwhile, Naveen made sure his own materials were always perfectly organized, his preparation always flawless, his dedication always visible. He arrived early and stayed late. He practiced scales with meticulous precision. He memorized compositions perfectly and played them with technical accuracy that could not be questioned. "See how diligent Naveen remains," Master Krishnan commented one afternoon. "After 7 years, his commitment has never wavered. This is the mark of a true student." For a few weeks, Naveen's plans seemed to be working. Ravi's progress slowed. He seemed less confident, more hesitant. He made small mistakes that he had not made before, forgot sections of music that he had previously mastered. "I feel like I am moving backwards," Ravi confided to Naveen one day after a particularly frustrating lesson. "Everything that felt natural when I first arrived now seems difficult and unclear." Naveen made sympathetic sounds while feeling secret satisfaction. "Perhaps you tried to advance too quickly," he suggested. "Sometimes it is better to build slowly on a solid foundation than to rush ahead based on early promise. But the animal in Naveen's chest was not satisfied with Ravi's struggles. It wanted more. It wanted Ravi to fail completely, to be dismissed from the school, to disappear so that the attention and recognition could return to where Naveen felt they rightfully belonged. So, Naveen escalated his sabotage. He began tampering with Ravi's instrument directly, loosening tuning pegs so the sitar would go out of tune during important lessons, placing tiny amounts of oil on the strings so they would not vibrate cleanly, adjusting the bridge so the intonation would be subtly but noticeably wrong. "Your instrument maintenance is becoming sloppy," Master Krishnan told Ravi after several lessons marked by tuning problems and unclear tones. "A musician must care for his sitar like a gardener cares for plants, with daily attention and respect." "But, Master," Ravi said, confusion clear in his voice, "I clean and check my instrument every morning. I cannot understand why these problems keep developing." "Perhaps you are not as careful as you believe," Master Krishnan replied with a slight edge of impatience. "Self-deception is common among students who expect praise to come easily." Naveen watched this exchange with growing excitement. Finally, Ravi was being seen as the careless, overconfident student that Naveen had always believed him to be. Finally, Master Krishnan was recognizing the superior discipline and reliability that Naveen had demonstrated year after year. The festival deadline was approaching, and Master Krishnan had not yet submitted any student recommendations. In past years, the selection would have been obvious by this point, but this year seemed different, uncertain. "I had planned to recommend Ravi," Naveen overheard the master telling his wife one evening as he passed by their quarters. "His early progress was remarkable, but lately he has become unreliable, careless with his instrument, inconsistent in his preparation. I begin to wonder if his initial promise was more superficial than I realized." "What about your senior student?" his wife asked. "The dedicated one who has been with you so long?" Master Krishnan was quiet for a moment. "Naveen's technical skills are solid, and his dedication is unquestionable, but there is something in his playing lately that troubles me, a hardness, a lack of joy. Music without joy is just organized noise." That night, Naveen could not sleep. He was so close to achieving what he wanted: recognition as Master Krishnan's most worthy student, recommendation to the festival, validation that years of hard work mattered more than natural talent. But the master's words about joy and hardness echoed in his mind. The next morning brought the day of the monthly recital, when all students performed for Master Krishnan and invited guests from the musical community. It was an important opportunity for students to demonstrate their progress and for the master to evaluate their readiness for more advanced training. Naveen had prepared meticulously for this recital. He had chosen a complex classical piece that would showcase his technical precision and his deep knowledge of traditional forms. He had practiced every phrase until it was perfect, every ornament executed exactly according to classical rules. Ravi, meanwhile, seemed unsettled and uncertain. His instrument had been giving him problems all week, despite his careful attention to its maintenance. His confidence had been shaken by the series of small failures and criticisms that had accumulated over recent weeks. As students took their turns performing, Naveen felt increasingly confident. His playing was flawless, technically impeccable, demonstrating years of serious study and disciplined practice. When he finished his piece, the guests nodded approvingly, and Master Krishnan acknowledged his skilled execution. Then it was Ravi's turn. He sat quietly for a moment, checking his tuning one final time, and Naveen waited eagerly to hear the stammering, uncertain performance that would finally expose Ravi's inadequacy in front of the entire musical community. But something unexpected happened. Instead of attempting one of the complex classical pieces he had been working on, Ravi began to play a simple folk melody that Naveen had never heard him practice. His touch was gentle, hesitant at first, but as the familiar tune unfolded, something began to change in his playing. The technique was not perfect. There were small hesitations, minor inaccuracies in the ornaments, but there was something else present, something that had been missing from his recent playing. There was tenderness in the way he shaped each phrase, genuine emotion in the way the melody rose and fell, a quality of searching and discovery that made even the simple tune feel profound. As Ravi continued to play, the room became very quiet. The guests leaned forward, listening more intently. Master Krishnan's expression shifted from mild concern to deep attention. The folk song was about separation, a lover waiting for someone who might never return, watching the road and hoping for footsteps that might be familiar. But as Ravi played, the melody seemed to express something larger than its literal subject. It became about all forms of longing, all experiences of waiting for something that might restore wholeness to a divided heart. When the last notes faded into silence, the room remained quiet for a long moment. Then, one of the guests, an elderly musician known for his stern standards, spoke softly. "That was not technically perfect," he said, "but it was completely honest. I have not heard music that moved me so directly in many months." Master Krishnan nodded slowly. When technique serves the heart rather than the ego, even simple music becomes profound. When the heart is absent, even complex music becomes hollow. Let us rest here for a moment. Feel your breathing, steady and reliable like the rhythm that underlies all music. Notice how your chest rises and falls without effort, without forcing, allowing the natural rhythm of life to continue. There is wisdom in this gentle, automatic process. Naveen felt something collapse inside his chest as he watched Ravi receive praise for the very quality that his own playing had lacked: authentic emotional expression. All his technical perfection, all his years of disciplined practice, all his careful preparation had produced music that was accurate but lifeless, skilled but spiritually empty. In that moment of recognition, the animal that had been feeding on envy and comparison suddenly turned its hunger on Naveen himself. All the energy he had put into sabotaging Ravi's progress had actually been sabotaging his own development as a musician. While he had been focused on proving his superiority, he had lost connection with the joy and wonder that had originally drawn him to music. After the recital, as guests and students mingled and discussed the performances, Naveen found himself standing alone in a corner, watching Ravi accept congratulations for his moving performance. Several people mentioned that despite recent struggles with technical issues, his musical heart remained pure and accessible. "You played beautifully today," Master Krishnan told Ravi quietly. "I had begun to worry that the pressures of study were making you lose sight of music's true purpose. But today, you reminded us all why we pursue this path." "Thank you, Master," Ravi replied. "I have been having difficulties with my instrument and my preparation lately, but today I decided to stop trying so hard to impress everyone and simply share something that felt true to me." Master Krishnan smiled. This is the sign of maturing wisdom. When we stop grasping after recognition and instead focus on serving the music itself, our playing naturally becomes more powerful. That evening, after all the guests had left and the other students had gone home, Naveen remained in the practice room, staring at his sitar. For months, he had been using this instrument to create technically perfect but emotionally vacant music, while simultaneously ensuring that Ravi's instrument would malfunction at crucial moments. The irony was too painful to ignore. He had been so focused on proving that his careful preparation was superior to Ravi's natural talent that he had forgotten to prepare his own heart. He had maintained his instrument with obsessive precision while deliberately damaging Ravi's, but in the process he had damaged something far more important: his own capacity for musical joy. A soft footstep made him look up. Master Krishnan stood in the doorway, his expression thoughtful and concerned. "You have been staying late often recently," the master observed. "But your playing suggests you are practicing with tension rather than devotion. What is troubling you, Naveen?" For a moment, Naveen considered telling the truth, admitting to the sabotage, the burned letter, the deliberate damage to Ravi's instrument, the months of small cruelties designed to make his fellow student fail. But the shame was too great, the potential consequences too devastating. "I have been working very hard to perfect my technique," Naveen said carefully. "Perhaps I have been trying too hard, as you suggested." Master Krishnan sat down across from him. "In 7 years of study with me, you have always been diligent and respectful. But lately I sense something different in your approach. There is a quality of desperation, as if you are trying to prove something rather than learn something." "I want to be worthy of your teaching," Naveen replied, which was true as far as it went. "But worthy to whom?" Master Krishnan asked gently. "To me? To yourself? To the music itself? Or to some imaginary judge who is keeping score of your accomplishments compared to other students?" The question hit close to home, but Naveen could not bring himself to acknowledge it directly. "I have invested 7 years in this study. I want to be sure that investment has meaning." "Ah," said Master Krishnan. "This is where confusion arises. You speak of your musical training as an investment, something that should produce returns in the form of recognition or advancement. But the Buddha taught that when we approach anything with grasping, even spiritual practice, even art, we create suffering for ourselves." He paused, looking out the window at the evening light. "Tell me, Naveen, why did you first want to learn the sitar?" Naveen had to think back to remember. The answer came slowly, like sunlight emerging from behind clouds. "I heard Ustad Rahman play at the temple festival when I was 15. The music made me feel like I was hearing the voice of something divine. I wanted to learn to speak that language." "And do you still feel that desire?" Naveen was quiet for a long time. When had he last approached his practice with wonder rather than worry? When had he last played for the simple joy of creating beauty rather than the complex goal of demonstrating superiority? "I think I have forgotten how to want that," he admitted finally. Master Krishnan nodded with compassion. "This is more common than you might think. The ego is very clever. It can take even our most sincere spiritual aspirations and turn them into competitions, into ways of proving we are better than others, rather than ways of becoming more ourselves." "How do I find my way back?" Naveen asked. And for the first time in months, the question came from genuine curiosity rather than strategic planning. "The same way you would tune a sitar that has been badly out of tune," Master Krishnan replied. Gently, carefully, listening closely to each adjustment, allowing the instrument to find its natural resonance rather than forcing it into the positions you think it should occupy. That night, Naveen went home and sat with his sitar in his lap without playing it. He simply held the instrument and tried to remember what it had felt like to love music instead of trying to use music to prove his worth. The animal in his chest was still there, still hungry, still wanting to compare and compete and prove. But now he could see it clearly for what it was, a part of his mind that had learned to find identity through superiority rather than through authentic connection with his art. Over the following days, Naveen began the slow process of changing his relationship with practice. Instead of focusing on technical perfection designed to impress others, he tried to rediscover the simple pleasure of making sounds that felt beautiful to him. Instead of listening constantly for Ravi's progress to compare with his own, he tried to focus on what his own playing was teaching him about music and about himself. It was difficult work. The habits of envy and competition had become deeply ingrained, and they did not disappear simply because he recognized their destructiveness. But gradually, small moments of genuine musical joy began to emerge again in his practice. One morning, he arrived at school early and heard Ravi practicing in the main room. Instead of listening with competitive analysis, Naveen simply allowed himself to appreciate the beauty of what he heard. Ravi was working on a challenging classical piece, and while his execution was not perfect, there was something in his approach that made the music feel alive and exploratory. As he listened, Naveen felt an unexpected emotion arise. Not envy, but something almost like gratitude. Ravi's presence in the school had forced Naveen to confront aspects of himself that had needed examination. The crisis of comparison had revealed how far he had drifted from his original love of music. But even as these healthier attitudes began to emerge, the consequences of Naveen's months of sabotage continued to unfold. The festival deadline was only 2 weeks away, and Master Krishnan still had not submitted any student recommendations. "I am deeply uncertain about this year's selection," Naveen overheard him telling another teacher. Ravi showed such early promise, but his recent struggles make me question whether he is ready for such an important opportunity. And while Naveen's dedication is admirable, his playing has lacked the spiritual depth that festival performance requires. That afternoon, Naveen discovered Ravi sitting alone in the courtyard, looking frustrated and discouraged. His sitar lay across his knees, but he was not playing. "The problems with your instrument continue?" Naveen asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. Ravi looked up with tired eyes. "I cannot understand it. Every morning I check everything carefully, but by afternoon something always seems to be wrong. The tuning slips, or the strings sound muddy, or the bridge seems to have shifted. I am beginning to wonder if I am simply not cut out for serious musical study." Hearing these words that represented the exact outcome Naveen had been working to achieve, suddenly filled him with horror rather than satisfaction. The young man sitting before him was genuinely talented, genuinely dedicated, genuinely struggling with problems that Naveen himself had created. "Perhaps," Naveen said slowly, "your instrument needs more comprehensive attention. Sometimes small problems accumulate into larger issues that are difficult to diagnose." He knelt down beside Ravi and examined the sitar carefully. As he looked, he could see evidence of his own sabotage, tiny amounts of oil on strings that he had applied weeks ago, slight adjustments to the bridge that he had made to throw off the intonation, loosened tuning pegs that he had deliberately weakened. "Here," he said, his hands beginning to shake slightly as he fully grasped what he had done. "Let me help you adjust some of these settings. I have been studying instrument maintenance for years." For the next hour, Naveen carefully undid months of deliberate damage. He cleaned the strings thoroughly, reset the bridge to its proper position, tightened the tuning pegs, and made dozens of small adjustments that restored the instrument to proper working condition. As he worked, Ravi watched with interest. "You know so much about these technical details," he said with admiration. "I focus so much on the musical aspects that I sometimes neglect the mechanical foundations." "The instrument must serve the music," Naveen replied, though his voice came out strained with the weight of what he was acknowledging. "When the foundation is unstable, even the most beautiful intentions cannot be properly expressed." When the adjustments were complete, Ravi tested the sitar. For the first time in months, it responded cleanly and consistently. The tuning held steady, the strings vibrated clearly, the intonation was true across all registers. "This is incredible," Ravi said with obvious relief. "I had begun to think the instrument was fundamentally flawed. How did you know exactly what needed to be fixed?" Naveen could not meet his eyes. "Experience," he said quietly. "Many years of observing how these problems develop." This story shows us how envy becomes a poison that destroys both giver and receiver. Naveen discovered that his attempts to diminish Ravi's success only diminished his own capacity for musical joy and authentic expression. Buddhism teaches that when we act from jealousy and competition, we create suffering not just for others, but primarily for ourselves. When we focus on comparing ourselves to others, rather than developing our own unique gifts, we lose connection with the very qualities that make our contributions valuable. Naveen's years of dedicated practice became meaningless when he used them as weapons rather than as tools for creating beauty. Let us explore the story of Chen, a merchant whose greed taught his customers to be suspicious of all trade. Rest now in the rhythm of your breathing. Feel how each exhale releases what you no longer need, and each inhale brings fresh possibility. Your breath knows this rhythm naturally, without forcing, without grasping. Allow this wisdom to settle into your body. In a prosperous trading city, where merchants from distant lands brought silk, spices, precious metals, and rare woods to exchange for local goods, there lived a man named Chen, who had built his reputation on fair dealing and honest prices. For 15 years, his stall in the central market had been known as a place where both locals and travelers could trust that goods were exactly as represented and prices were exactly as agreed. Chen's success came from understanding something that many merchants missed. Trust was the most valuable commodity in any market. A customer who trusted you would return season after season, year after year, bringing friends and family and recommendations that no amount of advertising could purchase. Word of mouth from satisfied customers was worth more than the finest decorated shopfront or the most expensive market location. His stall was modest but well organized, with clear displays of merchandise and honest signs indicating origin, quality, and price. Chen made it his practice to explain the story behind each item, which craftsman had made it, what materials had been used, why the price was what it was. Customers appreciated this transparency, and many would seek out his stall specifically because they knew they would receive accurate information along with quality goods. But the 15th year of Chen's business brought an unusual challenge. A severe drought in the regions that produced his most popular items, fine cotton cloth, aromatic oils, and dried fruits, meant that supply was much lower than usual, while demand remained constant. Prices from his suppliers doubled, then tripled, then became difficult to predict from week to week. At the same time, Chen's personal circumstances were becoming pressured. His elderly parents needed expensive medical treatment. His daughter was approaching marriage age and would need a substantial dowry to make a good match. His son showed promise as a scholar and would need funds for advanced education. The modest but steady profits from fair trading suddenly seemed insufficient for the growing demands on his resources. Chen found himself facing a choice that many merchants confront during difficult times: maintain the same standards of honesty and accept reduced profits, or find ways to increase margins through less transparent practices. At first, Chen tried to maintain his principles while adapting to the new reality. He clearly explained to customers that drought conditions had affected supply and that prices reflected these upstream changes. Most of his regular customers understood and continued to purchase from him, though in smaller quantities than before. But Chen began to notice that other merchants in the market were not being so transparent. They were mixing lower quality goods with higher quality items, adjusting weights and measures slightly in their favor, and creating confusing pricing structures that made it difficult for customers to understand exactly what they were paying for. "These merchants are making much higher profits than I am," Chen observed to his wife one evening. "Their stalls are busy, their customers seem satisfied, and they are clearly earning enough to live comfortably despite the same supply problems I face." "But are their customers actually satisfied?" his wife asked. "Or do they simply not realize they are being treated unfairly?" Chen considered this question, but the pressure of his family's needs made it difficult to think clearly about abstract principles. When his father's medicine cost increased again, and when his daughter's potential marriage arrangement required a larger dowry than expected, Chen made his first compromise with the honesty that had built his reputation. He began mixing just slightly lower quality cloth with his premium fabrics, not enough to be immediately obvious, but enough to reduce his costs while maintaining the same selling prices. He told himself this was a temporary measure, just until the drought ended and supply problems resolved. A few customers noticed the difference in quality, but Chen had explanations ready. "The drought has affected even the finest producers," he would say. "This represents the best available quality given current conditions." This was not technically false, since he was indeed offering quality that was better than what many merchants provided, even if it was not as good as what he had previously sold. The increased profits from this small deception helped Chen manage his family's immediate needs. But rather than feeling relief, he found himself consumed with anxiety about being discovered, about customers examining the goods more closely, about his reputation being damaged. To address this anxiety, Chen began developing more sophisticated methods of concealing the mixed quality. He learned to display only the finest examples while keeping the mixed goods in containers where customers could not easily examine them before purchasing. He developed a complex system of pricing and bundling that made it difficult for customers to calculate exact value relationships. These methods worked in the sense that complaints were rare and profits continued to increase. But they also required constant attention and energy. Chen found himself spending more time on deceptive practices than on the straightforward buying and selling that had once been his primary work. Moreover, the temporary measures became permanent habits. Even when supply conditions improved and Chen could have returned to his previous standards, he continued the practices that had proven profitable during the difficult period. "Why should I reduce my profits unnecessarily?" he reasoned. "My customers seem satisfied, my family's needs are being met, and I am still providing better value than many other merchants." But customers began to sense something different about Chen's stall, even if they could not identify exactly what had changed. The atmosphere of transparent trust that had once characterized his business was replaced by a subtle tension, a feeling that one needed to be more careful, more suspicious, more protective. Regular customers began examining goods more closely before purchasing, asking more detailed questions about quality and origin, comparing prices more systematically with other vendors. The easy, trusting relationships that had been the foundation of Chen's success gradually transformed into more guarded, transaction-focused interactions. "Chen seems to have become more like other merchants," one longtime customer mentioned to another. "His goods are still decent, but I find myself checking everything more carefully now. Something feels different about doing business with him. Yes, her friend agreed. I used to trust that anything from Chen's stall would be exactly as represented. Now I feel like I need to be more cautious, more skeptical. It's exhausting to shop that way. These changes in customer behavior created exactly the dynamic Chen had been trying to avoid. Decreased trust led to more careful scrutiny, which led to occasional discovery of the quality compromises he was making, which led to further erosion of trust. When customers did notice discrepancies, Chen had developed a repertoire of explanations that were technically defensible but subtly misleading. He blamed suppliers, cited market conditions, referenced changes in manufacturing standards that were affecting all merchants. These explanations protected him from direct accusations of dishonesty, but they also trained customers to expect that trade was inherently unreliable and that vigilance was always necessary. The cumulative effect of these small deceptions was to teach Chen's customers, and customers who heard about their experiences, that even apparently honest merchants could not be fully trusted, that every transaction required careful verification, that the market was a place where one's guard must always be up. Let us pause here in the gentle rhythm of evening. Feel your body settling into comfort, your breathing slowing naturally as you rest. There is no urgency in this moment, no problem that requires immediate solution. Simply be held by the peace that is always available when we stop grasping after more than we need. Within 2 years, the transformation was complete. Chen's market stall, which had once been known as a place of reliable honesty, had become just another vendor where customers needed to maintain their guard. The merchant who had built his success on trust had systematically taught his community not to trust him. But the consequences extended far beyond Chen's individual business. In a market ecosystem, trust and suspicion spread like ripples in water. When customers learned to be suspicious at Chen's stall, they carried that wariness to their interactions with other merchants. When they discovered that a previously reliable vendor could not be trusted, they began to assume that no vendor could be fully trusted. I used to enjoy shopping in the market, one woman told her neighbor. It felt like a community where people looked out for each other. Now I feel like everyone is trying to take advantage of me. I spend so much energy being suspicious that shopping has become exhausting work instead of pleasant interaction. Other merchants began to notice changes in customer behavior. People examined goods more closely, questioned prices more aggressively, negotiated more defensively. The atmosphere of the entire market became more tense, more adversarial, less enjoyable for both buyers and sellers. Customers have become so suspicious, complained Rajesh, a spice merchant who had always conducted business with complete honesty. They act as if every merchant is trying to cheat them. It makes even straightforward transactions feel uncomfortable. What Rajesh didn't realize was that customers had learned the suspicion partly through their experiences with Chen, and that this learned wariness now affected how they approached all market interactions, including his own. The market, which had once functioned on a foundation of general trust with occasional caution, now operated on a foundation of general suspicion with occasional trust. This transformation made commerce less efficient, less pleasant, and ultimately less profitable for everyone involved, including Chen. Chen himself began to notice that his profits, despite the deceptive practices designed to increase them, were not growing as expected. Suspicious customers bought smaller quantities, compared prices more extensively, and were less likely to make impulse purchases. They were also less likely to recommend his stall to friends or to return regularly for routine needs. The time and energy Chen spent on maintaining his deceptive practices, keeping track of which goods were mixed quality, managing complex pricing schemes, developing explanations for discrepancies, reduced his efficiency and increased his stress. What had once been a straightforward business became a complicated web of half-truths that required constant attention. Moreover, the anxiety of potentially being discovered affected Chen's sleep, his digestion, his relationships with family members. The money he was earning through dishonesty came at a cost to his peace of mind that he had not anticipated. One morning, as Chen was arranging his display of fabrics, carefully placing the finest examples on top of containers that held mixed quality goods underneath, he overheard a conversation between two customers that stopped him cold. "I need cloth for my daughter's wedding sari," one woman was saying to another. "It's the most important garment she will ever wear, so the quality must be perfect. But I don't trust any of these market vendors anymore. They all seem to be cutting corners, mixing inferior goods with better ones." "You're right," her friend replied. "Even Chen, who used to be completely reliable, can't be trusted now. My sister bought cloth from him last month for her son's ceremonial clothes, and the fabric developed pulls and thin spots after just one washing. Chen claimed it was due to changes in manufacturing standards, but we suspect he sold her inferior goods at premium prices." "What are we going to do?" the first woman asked. "The wedding is in 3 months, and I need to find cloth I can actually depend on." "We'll have to travel to the capital," her friend said with a sigh. "It will cost more in time and transportation, but at least there we can find merchants who stake their reputation on quality rather than trying to maximize profits through deception." Chen listened to this conversation with growing horror as he realized what he had done. These women were longtime customers, people whose families he had served for over a decade. Their daughters' wedding celebrations, their sons' coming-of-age ceremonies, their religious observances. All of these important life events required materials they could trust completely. By compromising his quality standards, Chen had not simply reduced the value customers received for their money. He had made himself unreliable for the moments that mattered most to them. And in doing so, he had forced them to take their important business elsewhere, even at considerable extra cost and inconvenience. But the revelation went deeper than lost sales. Chen began to understand that his deception had contributed to a breakdown of trust that affected the entire market community. When people could not depend on merchants they had previously trusted, they had to invest extra time, energy, and money in protecting themselves from being cheated. This meant that everyone, customers and honest merchants alike, was paying a hidden cost for Chen's decision to prioritize his short-term profits over his long-term reliability. The efficiency and pleasantness of the market as a social institution had been damaged by his individual choice to compromise his standards. That evening, Chen sat with his wife and tried to explain what he had discovered about the consequences of his business practices. "I thought I was just trying to maintain profits during difficult times," he said. "I told myself that small compromises in quality weren't really hurting anyone, since I was still providing better goods than many merchants." His wife listened quietly as Chen described the conversation he had overheard, the changes he had noticed in customer behavior, the way suspicion had replaced the trust that had once made the market a pleasant place for everyone. "I created exactly what I was trying to avoid," Chen continued. "I was afraid of losing customers due to higher prices, so I maintained lower prices by reducing quality. But now I'm losing customers anyway, because they can't trust me to provide what they actually need for important occasions. And it's not just your customers who are affected," his wife observed. If people become suspicious of all merchants because they cannot trust formerly reliable ones, then honest merchants also suffer from the atmosphere you helped create. Chen nodded miserably. I poisoned the well that everyone drinks from, including myself. That night, Chen could not sleep. He kept thinking about the wedding sari conversation, about customers who had celebrated important moments with inferior materials because of his deceptions, about the trust that had taken 15 years to build and only 2 years to destroy. But he also thought about the practical challenges he still faced. His parents still needed medical care. His daughter still needed a dowry. His son still needed education funds. The pressures that had led him to compromise his principles had not disappeared, simply because he recognized the destructive consequences of his actions. What can I do now? He wondered. If I return to honest practices, my profits will decrease at a time when my family needs are greatest. But if I continue the current practices, I will further damage the trust that makes the market function for everyone. The next morning brought an encounter that would help Chen find his answer. As he was opening his stall, a young merchant named Arjun approached him. Chen recognized Arjun as someone who had recently begun trading in similar goods from a location at the opposite end of the market. "Uncle Chen," Arjun said respectfully, "I wonder if you might give me some advice. I am having difficulty understanding how to succeed in this market." Chen felt a flutter of anxiety, wondering if Arjun had discovered his deceptive practices and was approaching him with some kind of challenge or accusation. "What kind of difficulty?" Chen asked carefully. "I am trying to build my business on completely honest dealings," Arjun said. "I show customers exactly what they are buying. I explain any flaws or limitations. I price goods fairly based on their actual quality. But I notice that other merchants seem to be making much higher profits, and I wonder if I am being naive." Chen felt his face flush with shame. Here was a young merchant trying to build his business on exactly the principles that Chen had abandoned, and seeking advice from someone whose recent success had been built on compromising those very principles. "I have been watching your stall," Arjun continued, "because I remember hearing that you built your reputation on fair dealing. But I notice that customers seem more guarded when they shop with you now than they did when I first started coming to this market. I wonder if complete honesty is actually a disadvantage in competitive trade." The directness of the question and the earnest concern in the young man's voice cut through all of Chen's rationalizations and self-deceptions. Here was someone who still believed that honest trade was possible, asking for guidance from someone who had lost faith in that possibility. "Sit with me," Chen said quietly, gesturing to a stool beside his stall. "I have something important to tell you, something I should have admitted to myself long ago." For the next hour, Chen told Arjun the complete truth about his business practices over the past 2 years. He described the pressures that had led him to compromise his standards, the methods he had used to conceal mixed quality goods, and the gradual erosion of trust he had observed in his customer relationships. "I thought I was being clever," Chen said. "I thought I could maintain higher profits without really hurting anyone. But I was wrong about the consequences, and I was wrong about what constitutes real success in trade." Arjun listened with growing sadness and concern. "So the market atmosphere I have been struggling with, the suspicion, the defensiveness, the assumption that merchants cannot be trusted, some of that comes from customers' experiences with previously reliable vendors who began cutting corners?" "I am afraid that is exactly right," Chen replied. "When people learn that they cannot trust merchants they previously depended on, they naturally become more suspicious of all merchants, including honest ones like yourself." "But what can be done about this?" Arjun asked. If the damage has been done, if trust has been broken, how can it be repaired? Chen was quiet for a long time, thinking about this question. Finally, he said, "I think the only way to repair trust is through consistent, honest action over time, even when that honesty is costly. But it requires merchants to choose long-term community benefit over short-term individual profit." "Are you willing to make that choice?" Arjun asked gently. The question hung in the air between them like incense waiting to be lit. Chen could feel the weight of it, could sense that his answer would determine not just his own future, but his contribution to the kind of community he wanted to live in. "I am afraid," Chen said honestly. "My family pressures are still real. If I return to completely honest practices, my income will decrease significantly just when I need it most." "But if you continue deceptive practices," Arjun pointed out, "your income may decrease anyway, as more customers lose trust and take their business elsewhere, and you will continue to contribute to an atmosphere that makes trade unpleasant and inefficient for everyone." Chen nodded slowly. "You are right. I've been thinking about this choice incorrectly. I thought it was between maintaining profits and accepting losses. But actually it is between contributing to a community of trust or contributing to a community of suspicion." That afternoon, Chen made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. He removed all the mixed quality goods from his displays and sorted his entire inventory into clearly marked categories: premium quality at higher prices, standard quality at moderate prices, and economy quality at lower prices. He created new signs that described exactly what customers were getting for their money, including any limitations or flaws in lower-priced items. He prepared to take significant financial losses rather than continue the deceptive practices that had sustained his profits for 2 years. The first customer to visit his reorganized stall was Mrs. Patel, a woman who had been shopping with him for over 10 years, but whose visits had become infrequent and guarded. "Chen," she said with surprise, "your display looks very different today. What has happened?" Chen took a deep breath and decided to tell the truth. "Mrs. Patel, I owe you an apology. For the past 2 years, I have been mixing lower quality goods with higher quality items while charging premium prices. I told myself this was necessary due to supply problems, but actually it was dishonest. Today, I am returning to the transparent practices that originally built my reputation." Mrs. Patel stood very still for a moment, processing what she had heard. "Are you saying that the cloth I bought for my grandson's naming ceremony, the cloth that developed problems after one wash, was deliberately inferior to what I thought I was purchasing?" "I am afraid so," Chen said quietly. "The problems you experienced were predictable consequences of the quality compromises I made to maintain my profit margins." Chen expected anger, accusations, perhaps a scene that would drive away other customers, but Mrs. Patel's response surprised him. "Thank you for telling me the truth," she said slowly. "I have been wondering if I was imagining things, if I had somehow become too demanding or suspicious. Knowing that the problems were real and that you are acknowledging them actually makes me feel better than continuing to wonder what was wrong." She examined the clearly labeled goods in Chen's reorganized display. "These prices are higher than what you charged before." "Yes," Chen said, "but the quality is honestly represented. This premium cotton," he said, holding up a bolt of fabric, "will maintain its appearance and texture through many washings. This standard cotton," he indicated another section, "will serve well for everyday use, but may show wear more quickly. And this economy cotton is suitable for temporary needs or for situations where durability is not essential." "Mrs. Patel nodded thoughtfully. I appreciate knowing exactly what I am buying. Even if it costs more, at least I can plan appropriately for important occasions. She purchased fabric for a family celebration, choosing the premium quality and paying the higher price without complaint. As she prepared to leave, she said, I hope you will maintain this honesty, Chen. The market needs merchants who can be trusted, even if their prices are higher. Over the following weeks, Chen's daily revenue dropped significantly as he had expected. But several unexpected things began to happen as well. First, customers who had been avoiding his stall began to return. Word spread that Chen was being transparent about quality and pricing, and people who valued honesty over bargain prices sought him out. Second, customers began buying with confidence rather than suspicion. When people trusted that goods were exactly as represented, they made decisions more quickly, bought larger quantities for important occasions, and felt comfortable recommending Chen's stall to friends. Third, Chen discovered that operating honestly required much less energy and created much less stress than maintaining deceptive practices. He no longer had to keep track of which goods were mixed quality, no longer had to develop explanations for discrepancies, no longer had to worry about being discovered. But most significantly, Chen began to notice that his return to honest practices was having subtle effects on the broader market atmosphere. As customers learned they could trust his stall completely, they became slightly more trusting in their approach to other merchants as well. I feel like the market is becoming a more pleasant place again, one customer mentioned to another near Chen's stall. When you find merchants you can actually depend on, it reminds you that honest trade is still possible. Let us pause in the gentle evening light. Feel your breathing, steady and natural, like the rhythm of honest work. Notice how your body knows how to rest without forcing, how peace comes when we stop grasping after more than we need. There is wisdom in this simple settling. 3 months after Chen's return to transparent practices, Arjun approached him again with an observation that surprised them both. Uncle Chen, he said, I have been watching what happened after you reorganized your business practices, and I noticed something interesting. Not only have your customers become more trusting with you, but they seem to be approaching my stall with less suspicion as well. Chen looked around the market and realized that Arjun was right. The atmosphere of defensive wariness that had characterized customer interactions for months seemed to be gradually softening. I think, Chen said slowly, that trust and suspicion both spread through communities like ripples in water. When customers have positive experiences with honest merchants, they become more open to trusting other merchants. When they have negative experiences with deceptive practices, they become more guarded with everyone. So individual merchants affect not just their own businesses, but the health of the entire trading community, Arjun observed. Exactly, Chen replied. I thought my compromises were just between me and my individual customers. But actually, every transaction either strengthens or weakens the web of trust that makes the market function efficiently for everyone. A few days later, Chen received an unexpected visitor. The traveling monk who passed through their region several times each year appeared at his stall during the quiet afternoon hours when few customers were shopping. I have heard interesting stories about changes in this market, the monk said with a gentle smile. People say that one merchant's return to honest practices has begun to restore trust throughout the trading community. Chen felt embarrassed by the praise. I am only correcting mistakes I should never have made, he said. My dishonesty created problems that affected many people beyond myself. The monk nodded approvingly. This understanding is the beginning of wisdom. Tell me, what have you learned from this experience? Chen considered the question carefully. I learned that individual actions have consequences that extend far beyond what we can immediately see. When I compromised my standards, I thought I was only affecting my own profit margins and my customers' individual purchases. But actually, I was contributing to an atmosphere that made trade more difficult and less pleasant for everyone. And what else? I learned that trust is like a garden that takes years to grow, but can be damaged very quickly. But I also learned that it can be restored through consistent, honest action, even though the restoration takes time and costs more than the initial damage. The monk was quiet for a moment, watching the late afternoon activity in the market. The Buddha taught that we are all interconnected, that individual actions ripple outward in ways we cannot always predict. Your experience demonstrates this teaching very directly. Yes, Chen said. I used to think of my business as separate from other businesses, my success as independent from my community's well-being. Now, I understand that merchants who serve their communities well create conditions that benefit everyone, while merchants who prioritize short-term individual gains damage the foundation that supports all trade. This is a profound realization, the monk said. And how do you apply this understanding now? Chen gestured toward his clearly organized display, his transparent pricing, his honest descriptions of goods. I try to remember that every transaction is an opportunity to either strengthen or weaken the trust that holds our community together. When customers leave my stall, feeling confident that they received exactly what they paid for, they carry that positive experience into their other interactions. And when they leave feeling deceived or uncertain, they become more suspicious of all merchants, more defensive in all transactions, more likely to assume that trade is inherently adversarial rather than mutually beneficial. The monk smiled. You have learned that individual ethics are not separate from community well-being. The merchant who serves customers honestly serves the entire trading community. The merchant who deceives customers teaches the community not to trust trade itself. As the monk prepared to continue his journey, he offered Chen a final observation. Your story will be remembered not for the mistakes you made, but for your willingness to acknowledge those mistakes and accept the costs of correcting them. This kind of moral courage strengthens communities in ways that extend far beyond commerce. That evening, Chen sat with his family and reflected on the changes of recent months. His income had indeed decreased, as he had feared when he returned to honest practices. But his anxiety and stress had decreased even more dramatically. The family's financial pressures were real, but they were manageable through careful planning and modest adjustments to their expectations. More importantly, Chen felt a sense of pride in his work that had been absent during the years of deceptive practices. He could look his customers in the eye without shame, could recommend his goods without reservation, could teach his children about his business without embarrassment. The money I lost by returning to honest practices, he told his wife, was never really mine to keep. It came from betraying the trust that customers placed in me and from contributing to an atmosphere that made trade more difficult for everyone. Real prosperity comes from serving our community well, not from extracting more than we contribute. His wife nodded with understanding. And now, when people see you in the market, they see someone who chose community benefit over personal advantage. That reputation is worth more than the extra profits from dishonest practices. This story shows us how individual choices create collective consequences. Chen discovered that his deceptive practices not only harmed his direct customers, but taught the entire market community to approach trade with suspicion rather than trust. Buddhism teaches that our actions ripple outward in ways we cannot always see, affecting the web of relationships that supports all of our lives. When we act with integrity, even when it costs us individually, we strengthen the foundation of trust that allows communities to function efficiently and pleasantly. When we prioritize short-term personal gain over honest relationships, we contribute to an atmosphere of suspicion that ultimately harms everyone, including ourselves. Let us explore the story of Deepika, a teacher whose harsh judgments created the very failures she sought to prevent. Rest now in the rhythm of your own wisdom. Feel how your body breathes without forcing, how your heart beats without grasping. There is an intelligence in these simple processes that works for your benefit without requiring your control. Trust this natural rhythm as you settle into deeper peace. In a mountain village where education was treasured above all other accomplishments, where families would sacrifice comfort and convenience to ensure their children could attend school, there lived a woman named Deepika who taught mathematics and reading to students aged 7 to 14. Deepika had come to teaching through her own passion for learning. As a child, she had been the student who stayed after lessons to ask additional questions, who solved problems that were not assigned, who found joy in the precise beauty of mathematical relationships and the infinite possibilities contained within written language. When the village council offered her the position of school teacher 8 years earlier, Deepika had accepted with genuine excitement. She would be able to share the intellectual treasures that had given her life meaning, to open young minds to the same wonder and possibility that had shaped her own development. The village school was small, housed in 2 rooms of a building that also served as the community meeting hall. Deepika taught all subjects to students of varying ages and abilities, adapting her lessons to meet each child where they were in their development. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying. For her first several years as teacher, Deepika had been known for her patience, her creativity in explaining difficult concepts, and her ability to encourage students who struggled with academic work. She celebrated small improvements, found ways to connect lessons to students' individual interests, and created an atmosphere where making mistakes felt safe and learning felt possible. Under her guidance, students who had never shown academic ability discovered they could master complex ideas. Children who had been labeled as slow learners found they could excel when concepts were presented in ways that matched their learning styles. The entire village took pride in the educational progress their children were making. But during her 4th year of teaching, Deepika began to notice disturbing changes in the academic performance of students entering school. New children seemed less prepared, less focused, less capable of the sustained attention that learning required. Their basic skills were weaker, their curiosity less developed, their work habits more scattered. These children are different from previous groups, Deepika confided to her husband. They cannot sit still for lessons. They make careless errors repeatedly. They seem to have no foundation for serious study. I don't know if it's changes in how families are raising children or some other factor, but something is definitely different. At first, Deepika tried to adapt her teaching methods to address what she perceived as declining student capabilities. She simplified lessons, shortened attention spans required for assignments, reduced expectations for accuracy and completeness. But these accommodations seemed only to reinforce the problems she was trying to solve. Students who were given simpler work did not develop the ability to handle complex tasks. Students who were allowed to make frequent errors without correction did not learn to work carefully. Students who experienced reduced expectations did not rise to meet higher standards. I am enabling laziness instead of developing capability, Deepika concluded. These children need more structure, more discipline, more rigorous standards if they are going to develop into competent students. So Deepika changed her approach. Instead of meeting students where they were and gradually building their skills, she began holding all students to the standards she believed they should meet immediately. Instead of celebrating small improvements, she focused on pointing out errors and deficiencies. Instead of making learning feel safe, she made it feel urgent and consequential. Arjun, she would say when a 10-year-old made an error in arithmetic, "This is basic mathematics that you should have mastered months ago. How do you expect to handle more advanced work when you cannot even complete simple calculations correctly? Mira, your handwriting is sloppy and careless. How can I evaluate your understanding of the material when you do not take enough care to write legibly? This work is unacceptable and must be completed again. Class, I am disappointed in the quality of yesterday's assignments. Most of you are performing well below the standards I expect. If you cannot improve significantly, you will not be prepared for the advanced studies that lead to opportunities outside this village." Deepika believed that by holding students to high standards and pointing out their deficiencies clearly, she would motivate them to work harder and perform better. She had observed that students could indeed meet higher expectations when those expectations were made clear and non-negotiable. But the results of this approach were not what Deepika had anticipated. Instead of inspiring students to work harder, the constant criticism seemed to discourage them from trying at all. Instead of developing higher standards, many students began to believe they were incapable of meeting academic expectations. "I'm bad at mathematics," 7-year-old Ravi began saying after weeks of having his computational errors highlighted publicly. "Teacher Deepika says I should know these things already, but I don't understand them. I can never write well enough for Teacher Deepika," 9-year-old Sita confided to her mother. "She always finds mistakes in my work, even when I try very hard. I think I am just not smart enough for school." Parents began to notice changes in their children's attitudes toward learning. Children who had previously been excited about school became reluctant to attend. Students who had once enjoyed working on lessons at home began to avoid academic tasks whenever possible. "My daughter used to ask me to help her with extra reading practice," one mother mentioned to another. "Now she says there is no point in trying because Teacher Deepika will find something wrong with her work, no matter how hard she tries. My son has started having stomach aches on school mornings," another parent observed. "He says he is afraid of being called on in class because he might give the wrong answer and be criticized in front of the other children." But these changes in student behavior only reinforced Deepika's belief that the current generation of children lacked the dedication and resilience necessary for serious academic work. "Look at how they respond to constructive criticism," she said to her husband. "Instead of working harder to meet standards, they give up at the first sign of difficulty. Instead of accepting feedback as guidance for improvement, they take it as personal rejection. These children have been coddled too much at home and have no tolerance for the demands of real learning." Deepika's response to students' decreased motivation was to increase the pressure further. She began giving more frequent tests, assigning additional homework to students who performed poorly, and implementing consequences for academic failures that extended beyond the classroom. "If you cannot demonstrate mastery of this week's mathematics lessons," she announced to her class, "you will remain after school for additional practice until you can perform at an acceptable level. Students who submit work that contains more than 3 errors will be required to complete the entire assignment again, plus an additional practice exercise. I will be sending letters home to parents of any student whose performance suggests they are not taking their education seriously." These escalating consequences created exactly the opposite of what Deepika intended. Instead of motivating students to work harder, they made academic work feel punitive and threatening. Instead of developing a love of learning, students began to associate education with anxiety, judgment, and the constant possibility of failure. The village, which had once taken pride in their children's academic progress, began to worry about the atmosphere in the schoolroom. Parents who had previously trusted teacher Deepika completely began to question whether her methods were serving their children well. "My child comes home from school defeated every day," one father said to the village council. "He used to love reading and mathematics, but now he says he is too stupid to learn. This cannot be the right approach to education." "The schoolroom has become a place of fear instead of discovery," added a mother. "Children are afraid to ask questions because they might reveal their ignorance. They are afraid to attempt difficult problems because they might make mistakes that will be criticized publicly." But when these concerns were raised with Deepika, she interpreted them as evidence that parents were not supporting proper educational standards. "Parents today want their children to feel good about themselves even when they are not performing well," she told the council. "They think education should be entertaining rather than challenging. But real learning requires discipline, effort, and the willingness to accept criticism when performance is inadequate. I am preparing these children for a world that will not coddle them or make excuses for their failures. If they cannot handle honest feedback about their academic work, how will they succeed in higher education or demanding careers?" The council members listened respectfully to Deepika's explanations, but privately, many of them felt confused. They remembered their own experiences with previous teachers who had managed to maintain high standards while also encouraging student confidence and curiosity. "Perhaps there is a middle way," suggested the council elder. "Standards are important, but so is maintaining students' willingness to learn. If children become afraid of education itself, high standards become meaningless because students stop trying to meet them." This observation pointed to the central contradiction in Deepika's approach, though she was not yet ready to see it. By using criticism and consequences to enforce standards, she was inadvertently teaching students that academic work was dangerous territory, where mistakes led to humiliation and failure led to punishment. Students who learned to fear making mistakes became less willing to attempt challenging problems that might expand their capabilities. Students who associated academic work with criticism became less likely to explore subjects beyond the minimum requirements. Students who felt judged harshly for their current performance became less motivated to believe they could improve in the future. The ironic result was that Deepika's high standards were producing exactly the kind of academic underperformance that had originally concerned her. Students were indeed becoming less capable, less motivated, and less prepared for advanced learning, not because they lacked natural ability, but because the teaching environment had made intellectual risk-taking feel too dangerous. Let us rest here in the wisdom of gentle awareness. Notice how your breath continues without criticism, how your heart beats without judgment. Your body knows how to function with perfect acceptance of each moment as it is. Allow this natural compassion to settle into your consciousness. The transformation in the village school reached its crisis point during the autumn examination period. Deepika had prepared what she considered to be fair assessments of the material covered during the first half of the school year. The questions were challenging but covered concepts that had been taught thoroughly in class. When she graded the examinations, however, the results were worse than anything she had seen in her 8 years of teaching. More than half the students failed to demonstrate basic competency in mathematics. Most showed significant gaps in reading comprehension. Even students who had previously performed well struggled to complete the assessment successfully. "This is exactly what I warned about," Deepika said to her husband that evening. "These children simply do not have the foundation or the discipline necessary for serious academic work. The examination results prove that my concerns about declining student capabilities were completely justified. But as Deepika prepared to meet with parents about the examination results, she made a discovery that would force her to reconsider everything she believed about her teaching methods. While organizing the test papers, she found a folder containing examinations from her second year of teaching, tests given to students who were now completing their education and preparing to leave the village for advanced studies. She decided to compare those earlier results with the current ones, expecting to find evidence that previous student groups had indeed been more capable. What she discovered instead shook her understanding of the situation completely. The academic content covered in her second-year examinations was nearly identical to what she had just tested. The difficulty level was comparable. The expectations were similar. But the results were dramatically different. In her second year, 70% of students had demonstrated strong mastery of the material. 25% had shown adequate understanding with some areas needing improvement, and only 5% had performed at levels indicating serious academic problems. But these successful students from her second year had not been naturally more gifted than her current students. Looking back through her records, she could see that many of them had actually started school with weaker preparation than her current group. Several had struggled significantly during their first months of education. The difference was not in the students' natural abilities, or their family backgrounds, or their foundational preparation. The difference was in how she had taught them. During her early years, when students made mistakes, Deepika had treated those errors as information about what needed to be taught differently, not as evidence of student deficiency. When children struggled with concepts, she had assumed the struggle was a natural part of learning and had provided additional support without judgment. "I wonder if there is another way to understand this problem," she said to herself as she sat surrounded by examination papers from different years. What if the students' declining performance is not due to changes in their capabilities, but to changes in my teaching approach? This possibility was difficult for Deepika to consider because it implied that her well-intentioned efforts to maintain high standards had actually been counterproductive. But the evidence was clear. Students taught with encouragement and support had performed significantly better than students taught with criticism and consequences. The next morning, Deepika made an unexpected decision. Instead of meeting with parents to discuss their children's examination failures, she asked if she could observe her students during their morning free time before formal lessons began. What she saw during this observation period provided crucial insights into how her teaching methods were affecting student learning. She noticed that when children worked on activities they had chosen themselves, drawing, building with blocks, telling stories to each other, they displayed exactly the qualities she had been trying to develop through academic pressure. They persisted through difficulties, helped each other solve problems, asked questions freely, and seemed genuinely engaged with intellectual challenges. But the moment formal lessons began, these same children became cautious, hesitant, and focused more on avoiding mistakes than on exploring ideas. The creative problem-solving she observed during free time disappeared, replaced by anxious attempts to provide answers that would not be criticized. "Look at this," she observed to herself as she watched 7-year-old Kumar work on a puzzle during free time. He tries multiple approaches, asks for help when needed, and celebrates when he finds solutions. But during mathematics lessons, this same child freezes when given similar problem-solving tasks. The realization was painful but undeniable. Her teaching methods were actually preventing students from bringing their natural learning capabilities into the classroom. By making academic work feel dangerous, she had trained children to approach lessons with defensive caution rather than curious exploration. That afternoon, Deepika sat quietly in the empty schoolroom and tried to understand how she had moved so far from the supportive teaching approach that had once been natural to her. She remembered her early years as a teacher, when student mistakes had seemed like opportunities to provide helpful guidance. She remembered celebrating small improvements, finding creative ways to explain difficult concepts, and maintaining an atmosphere where intellectual risk-taking felt safe. What changed? She wondered. Why did I begin to see student struggles as problems to be criticized rather than challenges to be supported? As she reflected, Deepika began to recognize a pattern in her thinking that had developed gradually over several years. At some point, she had begun to take student performance as a reflection of her own competence as a teacher. When students struggled, she felt this reflected poorly on her instructional abilities. When they made mistakes, she worried that others would judge her as ineffective. This personal insecurity had led her to approach student errors defensively rather than supportively. Instead of seeing mistakes as natural parts of the learning process, she had begun to see them as failures that needed to be corrected quickly and definitively. I was trying to prove that I was a good teacher by demonstrating that my students met high standards immediately, she realized. But actually, good teaching means helping students develop the confidence and skills to meet high standards gradually. The pressure she had placed on students to perform perfectly was actually pressure she had been feeling herself. Pressure to prove that her teaching was producing immediate, visible results that would satisfy parents, village council members, and her own professional insecurities. But this approach had created exactly the opposite of what she intended. By making students afraid of making mistakes, she had made it more difficult for them to learn effectively. By focusing on their deficiencies rather than their potential, she had undermined the confidence they needed to attempt challenging work. A soft knock on the schoolroom door interrupted her reflections. She looked up to see Kamala, the mother of one of her struggling students, standing hesitantly in the doorway. "Teacher Deepika," Kamala said quietly, "I hope you don't mind my coming to speak with you. I wanted to ask about my daughter Priya's examination results." Deepika braced herself for criticism, expecting Kamala to blame her teaching methods for Priya's poor performance. Instead, Kamala surprised her with a different kind of concern. "Priya has always loved learning," Kamala said. "Even before she was old enough for school, she was constantly asking questions about everything she observed. She would spend hours looking at picture books, making up stories, trying to understand how things work." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But this year, something has changed. She comes home from school saying she is stupid, that she cannot learn properly, that there is no point in trying because she will just make mistakes. Last night she asked me if she could stop coming to school because she feels too ashamed of her performance." Deepika felt these words like physical pain. Priya was a bright, curious child whose natural love of learning was being destroyed by teaching methods intended to improve her academic performance. "I am not criticizing you," Kamala continued gently. "I know you want all the children to succeed, but I wonder if there might be ways to maintain high expectations while also keeping children's love of learning alive." This conversation crystallized something that had been forming in Deepika's mind throughout the day. The problem was not that her standards were too high, but that her methods for encouraging students to meet those standards were actually preventing them from doing so. "Kamala," Deepika said slowly, "would you be willing to help me understand something? Can you tell me about times when Priya learned new things successfully at home? What conditions helped her develop new abilities most effectively?" Kamala considered this question thoughtfully. "When Priya is learning something at home, She asks many questions without worrying about whether they sound foolish. She tries different approaches when the first one doesn't work. She seems to understand that making mistakes is part of figuring things out. "And what makes this possible?" Deepika asked. "I suppose it's because she knows I won't judge her harshly for not knowing something or for making errors while she's learning. She feels safe to experiment, to be imperfect while she's developing new skills." This simple observation illuminated the core issue that Deepika had been struggling to understand. Learning requires intellectual risk-taking, trying approaches that might not work, asking questions that might seem basic, attempting problems that might reveal areas of confusion. But intellectual risk-taking becomes impossible when the environment makes errors feel dangerous or inadequate, performance feel shameful. Students who fear judgment naturally become more cautious, more defensive, less willing to engage with challenging material that might expand their capabilities. "I think I have been making a fundamental error," Deepika told Kamala. "I have been trying to prevent student mistakes rather than helping students learn from their mistakes. I have been focusing on performance rather than on learning." That evening, Deepika spent hours reviewing educational materials she had not examined for several years. Books and articles about teaching methods that emphasized encouragement, patience, and the creation of safe learning environments. She rediscovered research showing that students learn more effectively when they feel supported rather than judged, when mistakes are treated as information rather than failures, when the focus is on improvement over time rather than immediate perfection. "This is what I used to know," she reminded herself as she read. "This is how I taught successfully during my early years. Somehow I lost sight of these principles and began to believe that criticism and pressure would produce better results than encouragement and support." The next morning, Deepika made a decision that felt both frightening and necessary. She called a meeting of all the parents and explained honestly what she had discovered about the effects of her recent teaching methods. "I need to tell you something difficult," she began. "I believe that my efforts to maintain high academic standards have actually been preventing your children from learning effectively. By making them afraid of making mistakes, I have made it harder for them to engage with challenging material that would help them grow." She showed the parents the examination results from her early teaching years compared with recent results, explaining how the same students had performed differently under different teaching approaches. "I thought I was helping your children by pointing out their deficiencies clearly and holding them to rigorous standards immediately. But I was actually teaching them that academic work is dangerous territory where errors lead to humiliation. This made them more cautious, less curious, less willing to attempt challenging problems." Several parents nodded with recognition. They had observed these changes in their children's attitudes toward learning, but had not understood the connection to classroom teaching methods. "What I want to propose," Deepika continued, "is that we work together to restore your children's confidence and curiosity while still maintaining meaningful academic goals. This will require patience from all of us as students redevelop their willingness to take intellectual risks." One father raised his hand. "Teacher Deepika, we appreciate your honesty about this situation. But how can we be sure that supporting students more and criticizing them less will actually lead to better academic performance?" This was exactly the question that Deepika's own insecurities had prevented her from considering objectively. She had been afraid that gentler teaching methods would be seen as lowering standards or accepting mediocrity. "That is a fair concern," she replied. "But I think we have evidence from my own early teaching years that support and encouragement actually produce stronger academic results than criticism and pressure." Students who feel safe to make mistakes learn more effectively than students who are afraid of making errors. She gestured toward the examination comparison she had shared. The students who performed well on these earlier tests were not naturally more gifted than your current children. They were taught with methods that encouraged intellectual risk-taking rather than methods that made such risk-taking feel dangerous. An elderly grandmother in the back of the room raised her hand. "Teacher, my granddaughter used to practice her letters at home for hours because she enjoyed the challenge of making them beautiful. Now she rushes through her writing assignments and won't work on them at home because she says it doesn't matter how hard she tries. You will always find something wrong." "That is exactly the problem," Deepika acknowledged. "When students believe that their efforts will be met primarily with criticism, they naturally reduce their efforts to protect themselves from disappointment. But learning requires sustained engagement with difficult material, which is only possible when students trust that their efforts will be met with support." Another parent asked, "How do we maintain standards while also providing this support? We want our children to be prepared for the challenges they will face outside our village." "I believe," Deepika said carefully, "that real preparation for future challenges comes from developing confidence, curiosity, and resilience, qualities that grow in supportive environments. Students who have learned to approach difficulties with patience and persistence will be better prepared for advanced challenges than students who have learned to avoid difficulties to protect themselves from criticism." The meeting continued for 2 hours as parents and teacher worked together to understand how academic standards and emotional support could work together rather than in opposition to each other. By the end of the discussion, there was agreement that the school would return to teaching methods that emphasized encouragement, patience, and the treatment of mistakes as natural parts of the learning process, while maintaining clear expectations for student growth over time. Let us pause here in the gentle rhythm of understanding. Feel your breathing, steady and natural like wisdom that comes not from forcing, but from patient attention. Your body knows how to learn and grow without harsh judgment. Rest in this natural compassion as it settles into your awareness. The transformation of Deepika's classroom did not happen overnight. Years of criticism and pressure had taught students to approach academic work defensively, and it took time for them to redevelop trust in learning as a safe and enjoyable process. Deepika began by making small but significant changes to her daily teaching practices. When students made errors, instead of immediately pointing out what was wrong, she began asking questions that helped them discover the correct approaches themselves. "Arjun, I see you got a different answer than expected for this problem. Can you walk me through your thinking so we can figure out what happened?" Instead of criticizing sloppy handwriting, she began acknowledging effort while offering specific guidance for improvement. "Mira, I can see you worked hard on this assignment. Let me show you a technique that might make your letters more consistent and easier to read." Instead of comparing students to external standards they were not yet ready to meet, she began acknowledging individual progress and improvement. "Ravi, look at how much clearer your mathematical reasoning has become since last month. You are developing real problem-solving skills." These changes felt awkward at first, both for Deepika and for her students. Children who had learned to expect criticism were initially suspicious of encouragement, wondering if praise meant that standards had been abandoned entirely. But gradually, the atmosphere in the classroom began to shift. Students became more willing to ask questions when they didn't understand concepts. They began attempting challenging problems without waiting for permission or reassurance. They started helping each other with difficulties instead of hiding their confusion. Most importantly, children began to approach learning with curiosity rather than anxiety. The natural intellectual risk-taking that Deepika had observed during free time began to appear during formal lessons as well. "Teacher," 7-year-old Kumar said during a mathematics lesson, "I tried to solve this problem 3 different ways, and I got 3 different answers. Can you help me figure out which approach is correct?" This question represented exactly the kind of learning attitude that Deepika had been trying to develop. Instead of hiding his confusion or giving up when his first approach didn't work, Kumar was engaging actively with the difficulty and seeking guidance for improvement. "That's excellent problem-solving thinking, Kumar," Deepika replied. "Let's look at each approach together and see what we can learn from the differences." As the weeks passed, Deepika noticed that students were not only becoming more engaged with their studies, but were also beginning to perform better on assessments. When children felt safe to struggle with challenging material, they developed stronger understanding than when they tried to avoid difficulties. The improvement was not immediate or uniform. Some students needed more time than others to rebuild their confidence. Some continued to be cautious about intellectual risk-taking, even as the classroom environment became more supportive. But overall, the trend was clear. Students who felt encouraged to learn from their mistakes performed better academically than students who had been made afraid of making mistakes in the first place. 3 months after the parent meeting, Deepika administered another comprehensive examination, covering the same material that had produced such discouraging results earlier in the year. This time, she approached the assessment differently, not as a judgment of student inadequacy, but as information about which concepts needed additional attention and which areas showed strong student growth. The results confirmed what she had been observing in daily classroom work. Student performance had improved significantly across all subject areas. More importantly, students approached the examination with focus and engagement rather than anxiety and defensiveness. "I can see that most of you worked thoughtfully on these problems," Deepika told her class as she returned the graded assessments. "There are still concepts that need more practice, and that's exactly what we expect in learning. But your willingness to attempt challenging questions and show your thinking clearly has improved dramatically." Instead of focusing primarily on what students had gotten wrong, Deepika spent class time acknowledging growth, discussing interesting approaches students had taken to difficult problems, and identifying areas where additional learning would be most beneficial. "Sita, your essay about village traditions showed wonderful attention to descriptive detail. For next time, let's work on organizing your ideas so readers can follow your thinking even more easily." "Mohan, your mathematical calculations were accurate throughout this examination. Now we can focus on helping you explain your reasoning so others can understand your problem-solving process." This approach to assessment feedback served multiple purposes. It acknowledged student effort and progress, provided specific guidance for continued improvement, and maintained the supportive learning environment that was allowing students to engage more fully with challenging material. Parents began to notice changes in their children's attitudes toward school and learning. Children who had been reluctant to attend classes became eager to share what they had discovered during lessons. Students who had avoided academic work at home began requesting additional books and materials to explore subjects that interested them. "My daughter asks me to quiz her on mathematics problems now," one mother reported to Deepika. "She used to hide when it was time for homework, but now she seems to enjoy the challenge of solving new types of problems. My son has been reading to his younger sister every evening," another parent observed. "He says he wants to practice his reading skills so he can help teacher Deepika teach the younger students. He has never shown interest in helping others learn before." These changes reflected a fundamental shift in how students understood the purpose of education. Instead of seeing academic work as something they were judged on, they were beginning to see it as something they were supported in developing. But the most significant transformation was in Deepika herself. By returning to teaching methods that emphasized encouragement and support, she had rediscovered her own joy in education. Instead of spending her energy pointing out student deficiencies, she was able to focus on helping children develop their natural capabilities. "I remember now why I wanted to become a teacher," she confided to her husband one evening. "It wasn't because I wanted to judge whether children met standards. It was because I wanted to help them discover what they were capable of achieving." The classroom had become a place of exploration and growth rather than a place of evaluation and criticism. Students were learning more effectively because they felt safe to struggle with challenging material, and Deepika was teaching more effectively because she was focused on supporting student development rather than proving her own competence. One afternoon, as Deepika watched her students work collaboratively on a project about local history, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this understanding. "I thought high standards meant criticizing inadequate performance," she realized. "But actually, high standards mean creating conditions where students can develop their best capabilities over time. The goal is not to make children feel bad about their current limitations, but to help them grow beyond those limitations." A visiting teacher from a neighboring village stopped by the school that week and observed Deepika's classes. During the lunch break, she commented on the atmosphere she had noticed. "Your students seem so engaged and confident," the visitor said. "They ask questions freely, they help each other without being prompted, and they approach challenging material with enthusiasm rather than fear. How do you maintain such high participation while covering difficult academic content?" Deepika considered how to explain what she had learned through her own mistakes and corrections. "I think it comes from treating student struggles as information about what needs to be taught differently, rather than as evidence of student inadequacy. When children feel supported in their learning process, they are willing to engage with much more challenging material." "But don't you worry about standards?" the visiting teacher asked. "If you don't criticize poor performance clearly, how do students know what level of work is expected?" This was the same concern that had driven Deepika's earlier teaching mistakes, the fear that support and encouragement would lead to lower performance rather than higher achievement. "I have learned that there is a difference between having high expectations and using harsh methods to enforce those expectations," Deepika replied. "Students actually meet higher standards when they feel confident enough to attempt challenging work, and that confidence comes from knowing that their efforts will be met with guidance rather than judgment." She gestured toward her classroom, where students were visible through the open door, working intently on their projects. "These children are tackling more complex material now than my previous classes handled, not because I demand it, but because they trust that they will be supported in learning whatever they need to know." The visiting teacher nodded thoughtfully. "It seems like you have found a way to make rigorous academics and emotional support work together, rather than in opposition to each other." "Yes," Deepika agreed. "I used to think I had to choose between maintaining high standards and keeping students comfortable, but actually, students learn best when they feel both challenged and supported, when they know that difficulty is expected and that help is available." This story shows us how harsh judgment creates the very problems it seeks to prevent. Deepika discovered that her criticism and pressure, intended to improve student performance, actually made students afraid of the intellectual risk-taking that effective learning requires. Buddhism teaches that compassion and wisdom work together. We cannot help others grow through methods that make them afraid to attempt growth. When we support people's efforts while maintaining clear expectations for development, we create conditions where real improvement becomes possible. When we criticize inadequate performance without providing supportive guidance, We often teach people to avoid challenges rather than to meet them with confidence. We have explored together the stories of Reena, Naveen, Chen, and Deepika, each discovering how their individual choices created the very outcomes they had tried to avoid. We have seen how keeping the best for ourselves teaches others not to trust us, how envy corrupts our own capacity for joy, how dishonesty poisons the wells of community cooperation, and how harsh judgment prevents the growth it claims to encourage. Let us explore one more story about Maya, whose refusal to forgive became the prison that confined her own happiness. Feel your breathing now. Gentle and natural, like forgiveness that comes not from effort, but from the wisdom of letting go. Rest in the rhythm that continues without holding grudges against the previous breath, without demanding promises from the next. Your body knows this simple wisdom of release and renewal. In a peaceful valley where 3 rivers converged to form a single flowing waterway, there lived a woman named Maya, whose heart had once been known for its generosity and warmth. She had been the neighbor who brought soup when families fell ill, the friend who celebrated others' joys as genuinely as her own, the community member who could be counted on to help with any project that served the common good. Maya's home sat beside the central river, with gardens that she tended with such care that travelers would often stop just to admire the beauty she had created from what had once been rocky, difficult soil. Her flowers bloomed in careful succession throughout the seasons. Her vegetables grew abundantly enough to share with anyone in need, and her fruit trees provided shade and nourishment for both her family and her neighbors. But Maya's life changed dramatically on a spring morning when she discovered that her younger sister Kavita had been secretly meeting with Arjun, the man Maya had hoped to marry. The betrayal was double-edged. Not only had Arjun chosen someone else, but he had chosen her own sister, and both had hidden this relationship from Maya for months, while she continued to believe that a marriage arrangement was being considered. The discovery came accidentally, when Maya returned home early from market to find Arjun and Kavita sitting together in her garden, speaking quietly and intimately in a way that made their feelings unmistakably clear. They looked up at her approach with expressions of guilt and surprise, and in that moment, Maya understood that everything she had believed about her future had been built on misunderstanding. "How long?" Maya asked quietly, setting down her market basket with hands that had begun to shake. Kavita looked down at her feet. 3 months, she whispered. "We didn't know how to tell you. We didn't want to hurt you." "So you decided to hurt me by lying instead," Maya replied, her voice carrying a coldness that surprised even her. "You let me believe that Arjun and I were moving toward marriage while you were stealing him away from behind my back." "It wasn't like that," Arjun said quickly. "Maya, I have great respect for you, but I never promised marriage. Our families discussed the possibility, but no formal arrangement was made. When I met Kavita, I realized that my heart was already given elsewhere." These words, intended to clarify the situation, only made Maya's pain worse. Not only had she lost the man she had hoped to marry, but she was being told that her understanding of their relationship had been entirely one-sided. The future she had imagined, the life she had been planning, had apparently existed only in her own mind. "Get out of my garden," Maya said with quiet fury. "Both of you, get out and don't come back." Kavita stood up with tears in her eyes. "Maya, please. You're my sister. We can work through this together. I never wanted to cause you pain." "Your want to cause me pain," Maya replied, "was less important to you than your want to have what you thought was mine. You knew I had feelings for Arjun, and you pursued him anyway. You knew I would be hurt by your deception, And you chose to deceive me anyway. Those choices show me exactly how much my well-being matters to you." Arjun reached toward Maya as if to touch her arm in consolation, but she stepped back sharply. "Don't," she said. "Don't touch me, and don't try to explain this away. You both made your choices with full knowledge of how those choices would affect me. Now, live with the consequences of what you have chosen." That evening, as Maya sat alone in the garden where she had discovered the betrayal, she felt something harden inside her chest, like clay left too long in fire. The pain of loss was terrible, but somehow worse was the feeling of having been made a fool of having trusted people who were secretly working against her interests while pretending to care for her well-being. "I will never let anyone do this to me again," she promised herself. "I will never again be so naive as to trust that people mean what they say, or that family loyalty means anything when it conflicts with personal desires." Over the following days, Maya's hurt crystallized into something colder and more permanent. She replayed every conversation she had had with both Kavita and Arjun over recent months, reinterpreting their words and actions through the lens of what she now knew about their secret relationship. Every time Kavita had asked about her feelings for Arjun now seemed like gathering intelligence for a competitor. Every time Arjun had been friendly but non-committal now seemed like deliberate manipulation designed to keep her hopes alive while he pursued someone else. Every family gathering where the three of them had been together now felt like an elaborate deception in which she had been the only person unaware of the real dynamics at play. The betrayal grew larger in Maya's mind with each day that passed, expanding from a painful romantic disappointment into evidence of fundamental character flaws in both her sister and her former potential suitor. She began to see their actions not as mistakes born of confusion and poor judgment, but as calculated cruelties designed to humiliate and wound her. When Kavita came to her door a week later, hoping to repair their relationship, Maya received her with cold formality. "What do you want?" Maya asked, not inviting her sister to sit down or offering the tea that had always been automatic when family visited. "I want to apologize properly," Kavita said, her eyes red with tears that looked genuine. "I want to explain how this happened and ask for your forgiveness. I never intended to hurt you, Maya. You're my sister and I love you." "If you loved me," Maya replied evenly, "you would not have pursued someone you knew I had feelings for. If you respected me, you would not have lied to me for months while conducting your courtship in secret. Your actions showed me what your love and respect are actually worth." Kavita took a shaky breath. "I know I made terrible mistakes. I was confused about my own feelings, and I was afraid of how you would react. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. Should have talked to you before anything developed with Arjun. I handled everything wrong, and I'm deeply sorry." Maya watched her sister's obvious distress without feeling the compassion that would once have been automatic. Where she had once seen Kavita as her closest friend and ally, she now saw someone who had proven herself capable of betrayal when it served her interests. "Your apology doesn't change anything," Maya said. "It doesn't undo the months of deception. It doesn't restore the trust you broke. It doesn't repair the damage you caused to our family. Words are easy, Kavita. Your actions showed me who you really are." "But people can change," Kavita pleaded. "People can learn from their mistakes and do better. I know I hurt you terribly, but can't our relationship be more important than one terrible mistake?" Maya felt a flicker of the old affection she had always felt for her younger sister, but she pushed it away deliberately. Forgiveness felt dangerous now, like opening herself up to be hurt again by someone who had already proven they could not be trusted with her vulnerability. "Some mistakes are too big to forgive," Maya said firmly. "Some damage cannot be repaired. You made your choice when you decided to pursue Arjun secretly. I am making my choice now when I decide not to pretend that choice didn't reveal your true character." Kavita left that day with tears streaming down her face, and Maya watched her go with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. The satisfaction came from feeling that she had protected herself from further betrayal. The sadness came from somewhere deeper, from the part of her that grieved the loss of what had once been her closest relationship. But Maya pushed the sadness away and held on to the satisfaction. She had learned an important lesson about human nature, she told herself. People would prioritize their own desires over loyalty and honesty when given the opportunity. The sooner she accepted this reality, the better protected she would be from future disappointment. When Arjun came to visit a few days later, Maya's response was even colder. "I have nothing to say to you," she told him before he could speak. "You made your choice clear when you pursued my sister, while allowing me to believe I was under consideration for marriage. I don't need explanations or apologies from people who have already shown me what their word is worth." "Maya, please," Arjun said quietly. "I never intended to deceive you. I was genuinely uncertain about my feelings, and I made mistakes in how I handled the situation. But I would like to part on better terms than this. We will be living in the same community for many years. Then you should have considered that before you chose to conduct a secret courtship with my sister." Maya replied, "You should have thought about community relationships before you decided to treat me as if my feelings were irrelevant to your choices." She closed the door without waiting for his response and stood behind it, listening to his footsteps retreating down the path. There was a finality to the sound that matched her determination never to allow either Arjun or Kavita to hurt her again. In the days that followed, Maya discovered that maintaining unforgiveness required constant vigilance. Every time she began to feel nostalgic about good times she had shared with Kavita, she deliberately reminded herself of the betrayal. Every time she felt a softening toward Arjun, she forced herself to remember the months of deception. She found that she could keep her anger fresh by rehearsing the details of how she had been wronged, by imagining all the ways the situation could have been handled better, by building detailed cases for why forgiveness would be naive and dangerous. This mental rehearsal became a daily practice, like tending a fire that must never be allowed to die out. Each morning, Maya would review the evidence of how badly she had been treated. Each evening, she would reconfirm her resolution, never to trust either of the people who had betrayed her. But this constant focus on the betrayal began to have effects that Maya had not anticipated. The more energy she put into maintaining her anger, the less energy she had available for other aspects of her life. The mental space occupied by grievances and resentments left less room for the interests and activities that had once brought her joy. Her garden, which had always been her greatest source of pleasure, began to feel like burden rather than delight. When she worked among the flowers and vegetables, her mind would wander to thoughts of how she had been wronged, and the peaceful concentration that gardening had once provided became impossible to maintain. Her relationships with other neighbors became strained as well, though not in ways she immediately recognized. When people asked about Kavita or mentioned seeing Arjun, Maya's responses were so sharp and bitter that conversations became uncomfortable. Friends began avoiding topics related to her family or to romantic relationships in general, and gradually began avoiding Maya herself. "She's become so angry," one neighbor mentioned to another. after a particularly difficult conversation. I understand that she was hurt by what happened, but it's been months now, and she seems more bitter than ever. It's exhausting to be around someone who turns every conversation back to how badly they've been treated. I tried to invite her to my daughter's wedding celebration, another friend said, but she spent the entire time making cutting remarks about the unreliability of family loyalty and the foolishness of trusting anyone's promises. She made everyone uncomfortable. But Maya interpreted these social changes as further evidence that people could not be trusted. When friends became distant, she saw this as proof that they had never really cared about her well-being. When invitations became less frequent, she concluded that people were showing their true colors by abandoning her in her time of pain. This is what people are really like, she told herself. They are friendly when everything is going well, but they disappear when you need support. At least now, I know where I stand with everyone. This interpretation allowed Maya to maintain her worldview, that forgiveness was naive, and that holding grudges was the only realistic approach to human relationships. But it also meant that her circle of trust and companionship continued to shrink, leaving her increasingly isolated in her anger. Let us pause here in the flowing rhythm of evening. Feel your breath moving like water in a river, releasing what it has carried and receiving what comes next. Your body knows this wisdom of continuous renewal, of letting go without holding on to what has passed. Rest in this natural rhythm of release and acceptance. 6 months after the discovery of Kavita and Arjun's relationship, Maya's isolation deepened when she learned that they had decided to marry. The news reached her through neighborhood gossip rather than direct communication, which she took as yet another slight, evidence that they could not even be bothered to inform her personally of their plans. The wedding announcement triggered a fresh wave of anger and hurt that surprised Maya with its intensity. She had thought she was finished grieving the loss of her imagined future with Arjun, but learning that he and Kavita were making their relationship official felt like the betrayal happening all over again. They're probably planning to invite me to the wedding, Maya said bitterly to herself. They probably think I should celebrate their happiness after they destroyed mine. They probably expect me to pretend that everything is fine between us. But no invitation came. Days passed, then weeks, and Maya realized that Kavita and Arjun were planning to marry without including her in the celebration at all. This exclusion, which she had expected and even wanted, somehow felt like another injury when it actually happened. First they betray me, she reasoned, and then they exclude me from the family celebration of their betrayal. They want to erase me completely, as if my feelings never mattered at all. The wedding took place on a beautiful spring morning, with celebrations that could be heard throughout the valley. Maya stayed inside her house with the windows closed, trying to ignore the sounds of music and laughter that carried on the wind. But isolation could not block out the knowledge that everyone she had once felt close to was celebrating together, while she sat alone with her anger. That evening, after the wedding celebration had ended and the valley had returned to quiet, Maya's mother came to visit. She entered hesitantly, clearly uncertain about how she would be received. "Maya," her mother said gently, "I wanted to check on you. I know today was difficult." "Was it?" Maya replied coldly. "I hadn't noticed. I've been too busy tending my garden to pay attention to other people's celebrations." Her mother sat down uninvited and looked at her daughter with eyes full of concern. "This can't continue, Maya. This anger is poisoning your life. Kavita and Arjun made mistakes, but they're young people who fell in love. Their mistakes don't have to define the rest of your relationships." "Their mistakes," Maya said with emphasis, "showed me something important about human nature. They showed me that people will hurt the ones closest to them when it serves their interests. They showed me that family loyalty means nothing when it conflicts with personal desires. But holding on to this anger isn't protecting you, her mother observed. It's isolating you. It's making you suspicious of everyone, even people who have never done anything to hurt you. You're punishing yourself more than you're punishing them. Maya felt a flicker of recognition at these words, but she pushed it away. Admitting that her anger was hurting her would mean acknowledging that she had some control over her own suffering, and she was not ready to take responsibility for that. I'm protecting myself from being naive again, Maya insisted. I'm refusing to pretend that betrayal doesn't matter. If that makes other people uncomfortable, perhaps they should examine their own capacity for loyalty. Her mother sighed deeply. Maya, I've watched you grow more bitter and isolated every month. You've stopped participating in community activities. You've ended friendships that had nothing to do with Kavita and Arjun. You've turned your pain into a wall that keeps out everyone who might offer you comfort or companionship. And I've learned who my real friends are, Maya replied. The people who truly cared about me would have supported me during this difficult time instead of abandoning me because my pain makes them uncomfortable. But people did try to support you, her mother said quietly. Remember when Priya invited you to her family celebration and you spent the evening criticizing marriage and family loyalty? Remember when Rajesh offered to help with your garden work and you told him you couldn't trust anyone's offers of assistance? Remember when the temple committee asked you to help organize the festival and you said you had learned better than to invest energy in community projects? Maya felt uncomfortable hearing these incidents described from her mother's perspective. In her own mind, she had been protecting herself from further disappointment by maintaining appropriate boundaries. But through her mother's eyes, her actions sounded like rejections of people who had been trying to maintain connections with her. I was being realistic about human nature, Maya said defensively. I was refusing to set myself up for more betrayal and disappointment. But has anyone else actually betrayed or disappointed you? Her mother asked gently. Or have you been so afraid of being hurt again that you've rejected help and friendship before anyone had a chance to prove themselves trustworthy or untrustworthy? This question touched something Maya had been trying not to examine. In her focus on protecting herself from people like Kavita and Arjun, had she been pushing away people who might actually prove reliable and supportive? It doesn't matter, Maya said, though her voice lacked its earlier conviction. The damage is done. People have shown their true colors by how they responded to my situation. I know where I stand now. Her mother was quiet for a long moment, then said something that would stay with Maya for weeks to come. Sometimes when we're determined to prove that people can't be trusted, we behave in ways that make ourselves untrustworthy. Sometimes our anger becomes so consuming that we drive away the very people who might help us heal. After her mother left, Maya found herself unable to focus on anything else. The suggestion that her own behavior might be contributing to her isolation was difficult to consider because it implied that she had some control over a situation she preferred to see as entirely caused by other people's failures. She began to review her interactions with friends and neighbors over recent months, trying to understand them from perspectives other than her own. Had Priya really been trying to include her in family celebrations? Or had she been showing off her own happy marriage? Had Rajesh genuinely offered to help with garden work? Or had he been expecting something in return? The more Maya examined these questions, the more complicated the answers became. It was possible that people had been trying to support her. It was also possible that her responses to their efforts had been so defensive and bitter that she had discouraged them from continuing to reach out. But acknowledging this possibility felt dangerous. If her isolation was partly her own creation, then she bore some responsibility for her own suffering. If forgiveness and trust were choices rather than naivety, then she could choose differently. If her anger was protecting her less and harming her more than she had realized, then she might need to reconsider everything she had concluded about how to handle betrayal. These were thoughts Maya was not ready to examine fully, but they planted seeds of doubt about the worldview she had constructed to make sense of her pain. 3 weeks after her conversation with her mother, Maya had an encounter that would force her to confront these questions more directly. She was working in her garden on a hot afternoon when she noticed a young girl watching her from the path that ran beside her property. The child looked to be about 8 years old, with tangled hair and clothes that were clean but worn. She stood very still, as if trying not to be noticed, but her attention was focused completely on the flowers Maya was tending. "Can I help you with something?" Maya asked, not unkindly, but without the warmth she would once have shown to any child who appeared interested in her garden. The girl startled slightly but did not run away. "I was just looking at your flowers," she said quietly. "They're beautiful. I've never seen so many colors in one place." Despite her general wariness of people, Maya felt a flicker of the old pride she had taken in her gardening work. "These are marigolds," she said, pointing to a section of bright orange and yellow blooms. "And those are cosmos. They come in pink and white and deep red. The tall purple ones are cleome, and the small blue ones are lobelia." The child listened with obvious fascination, moving closer to see the flowers Maya was describing. "Do they all bloom at the same time?" she asked. "I planned them so that something would be flowering throughout the growing season," Maya explained, falling into the teaching mode that had once been natural to her when children showed interest in gardening. "The marigolds will bloom until frost, but the cosmos will produce new flowers all summer if you deadhead them regularly." "What does deadhead mean?" the girl asked. Maya found herself demonstrating the technique, showing how removing spent blooms encouraged plants to produce more flowers. The child watched intently, asking thoughtful questions that reminded Maya of her own early curiosity about how growing things worked. "What's your name?" Maya asked as they worked together, removing faded flowers from a section of zinnias. "Lila," the girl replied. "My family just moved to the valley. We're living in the small house by the old mill, while my father looks for permanent work." Maya nodded, remembering the family that had arrived recently, a young couple with several children, trying to establish themselves in a new community. She had noticed them at market, but had not made any effort to introduce herself, as she might have done in earlier years. "Where did you live before?" Maya asked. "In the mountains, but there was a landslide that damaged many of the houses and made farming difficult. My parents decided we needed to find a place where we could build a more secure life." Lila's matter-of-fact tone suggested she had repeated this explanation many times recently. As they continued working together, Maya learned that Lila's family was struggling to establish themselves in their new community. Her father was skilled in carpentry, but had not yet found steady work. Her mother was an experienced weaver, but had not been able to set up her loom in their temporary housing. The family was living on savings that were rapidly diminishing while they searched for stable income sources. "It's hard to be new in a place where everyone already knows each other," Lila said, with the wisdom of a child who had observed adult difficulties carefully. "People are polite, but they're careful about trusting strangers." Maya felt an unexpected pang of recognition. She too had become someone who was careful about trusting people. though for different reasons than the valley residents who were cautious about newcomers. "Would you like to take some flowers home to your mother?" Maya asked impulsively, gesturing toward a section of the garden where blooms were particularly abundant. Lila's face lit up with surprise and gratitude. "Really? Could I? Mama loves flowers, but we haven't been able to plant any yet because we're not sure how long we'll be in the temporary house." Maya cut a generous bouquet of mixed flowers, including some of her finest specimens. As she handed them to Lila, she felt something loosen slightly in her chest, the first genuine pleasure she had experienced in months. "Thank you so much," Lila said, holding the flowers carefully. "These will make Mama so happy. She's been sad about leaving our old garden behind." After Lila left, Maya continued working in her garden, but found herself thinking about the child's family situation. They were facing the challenge of building trust in a new community while dealing with economic uncertainty and the stress of displacement. In some ways, their situation reminded her of her own isolation, though theirs was circumstantial while hers was chosen. That evening, Maya found herself wondering how Lila's parents were managing the practical aspects of establishing themselves in the valley. Did they know which merchants offered the best prices? Did they understand the informal networks through which work opportunities were usually shared? Did they have access to the community knowledge that made daily life easier for established residents? These were exactly the kinds of questions Maya would once have addressed by offering practical help to newcomers. She had always taken pride in her role as someone who made strangers feel welcome, who shared useful information freely, who helped new residents connect with established community members. But that version of herself felt like someone from a previous life, someone naive enough to assume that generosity would be reciprocated and that helping others was a safe investment of time and energy. The next afternoon, Lila appeared again on the path beside Maya's garden. This time, she was not alone. A woman who was clearly her mother accompanied her, carrying the empty vase that had held the previous day's flowers. "Lila insisted that we come to return your vase and thank you properly for the beautiful flowers," the woman said with a shy smile. "I'm Kamala, Lila's mother. The flowers brought such joy to our little house. They made it feel more like home." Maya accepted the returned vase and found herself genuinely curious about this family's adjustment to their new life. "How are you finding the valley?" she asked. "Is your husband having luck finding work?" Kamala's expression suggested that the adjustment was more difficult than she wanted to admit. "People have been kind, but it takes time to build the relationships that lead to steady work. And everything is so different from our mountain community. Different customs, different ways of organizing work, different expectations." As they talked, Maya learned more details about the family's situation. They had 3 children, including Lila, and were trying to stretch their savings while building connections that might lead to stable income. Kamala's weaving skills could potentially provide supplemental income, but she needed workspace and access to materials that were difficult to arrange from their temporary housing. "The hardest part," Kamala confided, "is not knowing how to help our children feel secure when we're not sure of our own security. They need stability, but we can't provide it until we establish ourselves here." Maya felt a stirring of the old impulse to offer practical assistance. She knew which community members were most likely to have carpentry work available. She understood how the informal networks functioned that connected artisans with customers. She had workspace in her own home that could accommodate a weaving loom, and she knew suppliers who provided quality materials at fair prices. But offering this kind of help would require her to emerge from the protective isolation she had maintained for months. It would mean engaging with the community network she had withdrawn from, reconnecting with neighbors she had been avoiding, and making herself useful to people who might ultimately prove untrustworthy. "I hope things work out for your family," Maya said carefully, offering sympathy without committing to any specific assistance. But that evening, as Maya sat alone in her house, she found herself thinking about Lila's bright curiosity about the garden and Kamala's quiet anxiety about her family's future. She thought about the pleasure she had felt when giving flowers to someone who genuinely appreciated them, and the satisfaction that had once come from helping newcomers navigate their adjustment to community life. These thoughts made her aware of how little satisfaction or pleasure she had experienced since choosing to focus her energy on maintaining anger and protecting herself from further betrayal. The mental effort required to sustain unforgiveness was exhausting, and it left little space for the activities and relationships that had once given her life meaning. "But if I help them," Maya reasoned, "I'm setting myself up to be disappointed again. If I invest energy in their success and they prove ungrateful or untrustworthy, I'll have repeated the same mistake that got me hurt in the first place." Yet she also had to acknowledge that Kavita and Arjun's betrayal, painful as it had been, was not actually representative of all human relationships. Most of her previous experiences with helping newcomers had been positive. Most of her neighbors had proven reliable over years of mutual assistance. Most of the community relationships she had abandoned had been functioning well before she withdrew from them in fear. "Maybe," she thought reluctantly, "my experience with Kavita and Arjun taught me to be more careful about trust, but it didn't necessarily prove that trust itself is always dangerous." This possibility, that some relationships could be trustworthy even though others had proven unreliable, was difficult for Maya to consider because it suggested that her blanket withdrawal from community involvement might be an overreaction rather than a necessary protection. But it also suggested that she had some choice about how to respond to betrayal. She could allow one painful experience to define all her future relationships, or she could learn to distinguish between people who had earned distrust and people who deserved a chance to prove themselves trustworthy. The next morning, Maya woke with an idea that surprised her. What if she offered to let Kamala set up her loom in Maya's spare room? The arrangement could benefit both women. Kamala would have workspace to establish her weaving business, and Maya would have company that might help break through the isolation that had become increasingly burdensome. But even considering this possibility made Maya aware of how much fear had accumulated around the idea of trusting anyone with anything important. What if Kamala damaged her house or took advantage of her generosity? What if the arrangement became complicated or difficult to end? What if helping this family somehow led to the same kind of betrayal she had experienced with Kavita and Arjun? These fears felt real and important, but Maya also recognized that they were based on assumptions rather than evidence. She had no reason to believe that Kamala would prove untrustworthy, beyond the general suspicion that had developed since her sister's betrayal. Maybe, she thought, the question isn't whether trust is safe. It obviously isn't always safe. Maybe the question is whether the costs of never trusting anyone are higher than the costs of sometimes being disappointed by people who prove unworthy of trust. This was a question Maya had been avoiding for months, because answering it honestly would require her to acknowledge that her protective isolation was exacting its own toll on her well-being and happiness. Let us rest here in the gentle wisdom of evening light. Feel how your breathing continues steadily, trusting each moment to bring what is needed without demanding guarantees about the future. Your body practices this wisdom naturally, releasing what has been and receiving what comes next with openness rather than fear. Allow this natural rhythm to settle into your awareness. That afternoon, when Lila appeared again at Maya's garden gate, Maya made a choice that felt both terrifying and necessary. "Lila," she said, her voice uncertain but determined, "would you ask your mother if she would like to see my spare room? I have space where she could set up a loom, if that would be helpful while your family establishes itself here." The child's face brightened with surprise and hope. "Really? You would let Mama work in your house? She's been so worried about how to start weaving again without proper workspace." "I would like to help if I can," Maya said, and as the words left her mouth, she felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the tight grip she had maintained on her anger for so many months. When Kamala arrived an hour later, she was clearly moved by the offer, but also cautious about accepting help from someone she barely knew. "This is incredibly generous," she said slowly, "but I want to be sure you understand what you're offering. Setting up a loom is not a temporary arrangement. It would mean regular activity in your home, customers coming to discuss commissions, children sometimes accompanying me while I work. I don't want to disrupt your peaceful life." Maya considered this description of what helping would actually involve. For months, she had protected her peaceful life by avoiding exactly this kind of complicated, ongoing involvement with other people's needs and circumstances. But as she looked at Kamala's anxious face and thought about Lila's bright curiosity about the garden, Maya realized that her peaceful life had actually become an empty life. In protecting herself from the possibility of being hurt, she had also closed herself off from the possibility of finding joy, purpose, and connection. "I think," Maya said carefully, "that I need the disruption more than I need the peace. I've been living very quietly lately, and I've discovered that quiet can become isolation when it goes on too long." Over the following weeks, as Kamala established her loom in Maya's spare room and began accepting weaving commissions from community members, Maya found herself slowly re-entering the social networks she had abandoned months earlier. Customers who came to discuss weaving projects often lingered to admire Maya's garden or to ask advice about their own plants. Children who accompanied their mothers while cloth was being measured and cut were delighted to be taught about flowers and vegetables. Neighbors who had stopped visiting during Maya's period of angry isolation began dropping by again, drawn partly by curiosity about Kamala's beautiful work and partly by the renewed warmth in Maya's manner. "You seem different," her mother observed during one of these visits. "More like yourself again." Maya nodded slowly. "I think I learned something important about forgiveness," she said. "I thought forgiveness meant pretending that betrayal doesn't matter, or that people who hurt you deserve to be trusted again immediately. But actually, forgiveness means choosing not to let other people's failures define your own capacity for joy and connection." "And Kavita and Arjun?" her mother asked gently. Maya was quiet for a moment, considering. "I'm not ready to have close relationships with them again. Maybe I never will be. But I'm ready to stop letting my anger toward them control how I treat everyone else. I'm ready to stop punishing myself for their mistakes." She gestured toward the room where Kamala was working, where the sound of the loom provided a gentle rhythm that had become comforting background to daily life. "Helping Kamala's family reminded me of who I am when I'm not consumed with protecting myself from being hurt. I like that version of myself better than the version I became when I made anger and suspicion my primary guides." As spring moved toward summer, Maya's garden bloomed more abundantly than it had in years. Whether this was because she was tending it with renewed attention and pleasure, or because Lila's eager assistance was making the work more enjoyable, or simply because some seasons are more generous than others, Maya could not say. What she could say was that sharing the garden's beauty felt more satisfying than keeping it to herself had ever been. When Lila brought friends to see the flowers, when customers admiring Kamala's weaving spilled out into the garden to appreciate the natural beauty surrounding the house, when neighbors stopped by to exchange plants and gardening advice, Maya felt a sense of purpose and connection that had been missing during her months of protective isolation. The traveling monk appeared on the path one evening as Maya was watering newly planted seedlings while Lila helped by identifying which plants needed attention. "I have heard interesting stories about changes in this household," he said with a gentle smile. "People speak of a garden that has become a gathering place, of weaving that brings beauty to the whole community, of a woman who learned to transform pain into wisdom." Maya felt embarrassed by the praise. "I only learned what I should have known already, that protecting yourself from all possibility of being hurt also protects you from all possibility of finding joy." The monk nodded approvingly. "This understanding is worth more than many years of study. Tell me, what did you discover about forgiveness?" Maya considered the question while Lila continued working beside them, unconsciously demonstrating the trust and openness that had helped Maya rediscover her own capacity for connection. "I discovered that forgiveness is not about other people," Maya said slowly. "It's not about deciding that they deserve to be pardoned or that their actions didn't matter. Forgiveness is about deciding that their actions won't be allowed to poison your own life indefinitely." "And what else?" "I learned that when we hold on to anger to protect ourselves, we often end up creating the very isolation and unhappiness we were trying to avoid. My refusal to forgive Kavita and Arjun didn't hurt them. They were happy together regardless of my feelings. But it did hurt me. And it hurt all the relationships I abandoned because I was afraid of being betrayed again." The monk was quiet for a moment, watching Lila work with focused attention among the flowers. "The Buddha taught that anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else," he said finally. "You are the one who gets burned." Maya nodded with deep recognition. "For months, I carried that burning coal, thinking it was protecting me. But all it did was burn my hands and fill my vision with smoke, so I couldn't see the good things that were still available to me." "And now?" Maya looked around at her garden, where Lila was carefully transplanting seedlings under Kamala's watchful eye, where the sound of the loom created a peaceful rhythm, where neighbors felt welcome to stop and share the beauty that grew from tended earth. "Now I'm learning to trust again, carefully but genuinely. Not because people are always trustworthy, they're not, but because the alternative to trust is isolation, and isolation is a kind of death while you're still breathing." As the evening light deepened and the monk prepared to continue his journey, he offered Maya a final observation. "Your story will be remembered not for the betrayal that happened to you, but for how you chose to respond to that betrayal. You learned that forgiveness is not weakness, but strength. The strength to refuse to let other people's failures diminish your own capacity for love and generosity." That night, as Maya sat in her garden listening to the gentle sounds of Kamala's family settling into sleep in the rooms above, she felt a deep peace that had nothing to do with the absence of problems and everything to do with the presence of purpose, connection, and hope. The pain of Kavita and Arjun's betrayal had not disappeared entirely, and probably never would. But it was no longer the defining experience of her life. It had become one thread in a much larger tapestry that included the joy of watching Lila discover the magic of growing things, the satisfaction of helping Kamala's family establish security in their new home, and the renewed pleasure of being someone who contributed to her community's well-being. Some wounds teach us to be more careful, Maya reflected as she watched fireflies begin their evening dance among the flowers. But the most important thing they can teach us is that healing is possible, that trust can be rebuilt wisely, and that our capacity for love is stronger than our capacity for pain. This story shows us how unforgiveness becomes a prison we build for ourselves. Maya discovered that holding on to anger and refusing to trust again hurt her more than it hurt the people who had betrayed her. Buddhism teaches that our reactions to pain often cause more suffering than the original pain itself. When we choose forgiveness, not as weakness, but as strength, we free ourselves to experience joy, connection, and purpose again. Forgiveness doesn't require us to trust unwisely or to pretend that betrayal doesn't matter. It simply means refusing to let other people's failures control our own capacity for happiness. We have traveled far together tonight, exploring the villages of our own hearts through the stories of Rina, Naveen, Chen, Deepika, and Maya. We met the potter who learned that keeping the best for herself taught others not to trust her. We discovered the musician whose envy corrupted his own joy in creating beauty. We saw the merchant who poisoned the wells of community trust through small deceptions. We witnessed the teacher whose harsh judgments prevented the growth she sought to encourage. We walked with the woman who learned that forgiveness is not about other people, but about freeing ourselves from the prison of perpetual anger. All of these teachings point to the same profound truth: we are interconnected. What we give to the world returns to us multiplied. The seeds we plant with our actions grow into the conditions we must live within. When we act from wisdom, compassion, and integrity, we strengthen the web of trust and kindness that supports all life. When we act from fear, greed, envy, or anger, we weaken that web and ultimately harm ourselves along with others. The Buddha taught that we create our own suffering through our attachments, our aversions, and our failure to see clearly how all beings depend on each other. Tonight, we have seen this teaching illustrated through simple stories of ordinary people making choices that seemed small, but carried consequences far beyond what they could imagine. You who have listened to these stories, carry this wisdom now in your own daily choices: how you treat those who serve you, how you respond to others' success, how you conduct your work, how you guide those in your care, how you handle the inevitable betrayals and disappointments of human relationships. You have countless opportunities to plant seeds of wisdom or seeds of suffering. The most beautiful truth is that you always have a choice. No matter what has happened to you, no matter what mistakes you have made, no matter how trapped you may feel by circumstances or by your own patterns of thinking, you always have the power to choose differently in this moment. Let your breath soften now, releasing any tension you've been carrying. Feel your shoulders dropping away from your ears, your jaw releasing any tightness it has held. Allow your whole body to settle into the support that holds you. There is nothing you need to fix right now, no problem that requires your immediate attention. The breath continues without your effort. Your heart beats without your control. The wisdom that guides these processes also guides your life when you stop grasping and allow yourself to rest in the natural rhythm of being. Let your eyes close if they aren't already closed. Feel the weight of your body completely supported. Notice how your breath naturally slows and deepens as you release the day's concerns. You don't need to remember everything you've heard tonight. The wisdom that is meant for you has already planted itself in your understanding. It will grow in its own time, in its own way, creating the changes that serve your highest good. Simply rest now in the knowledge that you are part of something vast and beautiful, a web of connection that extends far beyond what you can see or understand. Your individual choices matter because they ripple outward, touching lives in ways you may never know. Your capacity for wisdom and compassion is part of the healing the world needs. Let everything soften now. Let your breath carry away what you no longer need. Let your heart rest in the peace that is always available when you stop struggling and allow yourself to simply be here, in this moment, exactly as you are. You are already complete. You are already home. There is nothing you need to become, nothing you need to achieve, nowhere you need to go. Simply rest in the infinite kindness that holds all beings, that has always held you, that will continue to hold you long after these words have faded into silence. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us at Sleepy Monk.